Chapter 1: The Stranger in the Shadows. The kitchen knife trembled in Luna's grip as she pressed herself against the bakery's back door, listening to the growls echoing from the alley behind her shop. 3 a.m. was supposed to be peaceful in the small town of Millbrook, the kind of quiet that let her prep tomorrow's bread in solitude, away from curious eyes and whispered gossip about the girl who'd aged out of foster care with nothing but determination and inherited recipe book. But tonight something was dying out there. "Please," she whispered to herself, clutching the phone she couldn't bring herself to use. "Call the police and tell them that she heard animal sounds that made her skin crawl and her heart race with inexplicable terror." The growling stopped. Silence stretched like a held breath, then shattered as something massive slammed against her door. The reinforced steel groaned, and Luna stumbled backward, knocking over a tray of cooling muffins. Her phone clattered to the flour-dusted floor. "Help." The voice was barely human, rough and broken. "Please." Luna's foster mother had always said she was too soft-hearted for her own good. Maybe that's why she found herself unlocking 3 deadbolts instead of running. Maybe that's why she pulled open the door, despite every survival instinct screaming at her to hide. The man collapsed at her feet in a pool of his own blood. He was enormous, easily 6'5", with shoulders that could span her doorway. Dark hair matted with dirt and worse, clothes shredded beyond recognition. But it was his eyes that stole her breath. Pale silver that seemed to glow in the bakery's fluorescent lighting, ancient and wild and utterly inhuman. "You're hurt," Luna breathed, dropping to her knees beside him. Her hands hovered over wounds that should have been fatal, deep gashes across his chest and arms that bled too dark, too thick. "I need to call an ambulance." His hands shot out, fingers wrapping around her wrist with surprising strength. "No hospitals." The words came out as a growl. "They'll kill me." "You'll die without medical attention." "I'll die faster with it." Those strange eyes fixed on hers, and Luna felt something shift inside her chest, a recognition that made no sense, a pull toward this bleeding stranger that defied logic. Please, just somewhere safe, few hours. Every rational thought told her to refuse. She didn't know this man. The smart thing would be to call 911, let the professionals handle whatever gang violence or drug deal gone wrong had left him bleeding in her alley. Instead, Luna found herself nodding. "Can you walk?" with help. She slipped her arm under his shoulders, shocked by the heat radiating from his skin despite his injuries. He leaned heavily against her, all that muscle and desperate vulnerability, as they stumbled through the bakery toward the narrow stairs leading to her apartment above. "What's your name?" she asked as they reached the landing, both of them breathing hard. He hesitated. "Kieran." "I'm Luna." Something flickered across his face at her name, but before she could ask, her phone rang downstairs, shrill and urgent in the pre-dawn silence. They both froze. "You expecting calls at 3 a.m.? Kieran's voice had gone deadly quiet. "Never." Luna's mouth went dry. No one has this number except." The ringing stopped, then immediately started again. "Don't answer it." Kieran was already moving, pushing past his injuries to peer out her window. His entire body had gone rigid, predatory. "We need to leave. Now." "What? Why? This is my home." "Look outside." Luna joined him at the window and felt her world tilt. 3 black SUVs were pulling up outside her bakery, their headlights cutting through the darkness. Men in dark clothing emerged, moving with military precision toward her front door. "Who are they?" Her voice came out as a whisper. "Hunters." The word carried a weight that made her shiver. "They tracked my blood here." "Hunters of what?" Kieran turned to face her, and in the pale moonlight streaming through her window, Luna saw something impossible. His wounds were already beginning to close, flesh knitting together with unnatural speed. His silver eyes reflected light like an animal's. "Hunters of me." The front door exploded inward with a crash that shook the entire building. "Luna Morrison?" A cultured voice called from below. "We know you're here. We also know you're harboring something that doesn't belong in civilized society. Make this easy on yourself." Kieran's hand found hers, warm and cautious and surprisingly gentle. "Do you trust me?" She should say no, should demand explanations, should scream, should do anything except what she was about to do. But looking into those otherworldly eyes, feeling the electric connection that had sparked the moment she'd opened her door, Luna realized her answer had been inevitable from the start. Yes, he smiled, the first real expression she'd seen from him, and it transformed his entire face. Then hold tight. Before she could ask what he meant, Kieran swept her into his arms and dove toward her bedroom window. Glass exploded around them as they crashed through. Luna's scream lost in the sound of shattering and the impossible sensation of falling 3 stories toward the unforgiving ground below. But they didn't hit concrete. Instead, Luna found herself landing on something warm and soft and moving. Kieran, but not Kieran. Where the man had been now ran a massive wolf with silver eyes, carrying her on his back as he bounded across rooftops with inhuman grace. Behind them, shouts erupted from her apartment. Flashlight beams cut through the darkness, searching. Find them, the cultured voice commanded. The Alpha King can't be allowed to reach the border, and if the woman's seen too much. The words faded as they moved deeper into the forest beyond Millbrook, but Luna caught enough to make her blood freeze. Alpha King! She clung to the wolf's thick fur, her mind reeling. This morning she'd been a lonely baker whose biggest problem was making rent. Now she was fleeing armed men on the back of a creature that shouldn't exist, labeled as a witness to something that might get her killed. The wolf, Kieran, slowed as they reached a clearing deep in the woods. When he stopped, Luna slid from his back on shaking legs and watched in fascination and terror as he shifted back to human form, naked human form. Luna squeezed her eyes shut, heat flooding her cheeks. She heard him chuckle, the first light sound he'd made. Modest. I like that. Rustling sounds then. You can look now. He'd found clothes somewhere, jeans and a flannel shirt that fit too perfectly to be coincidence. Luna opened her eyes to find him watching her with an expression she couldn't read. You're not human, she said. No, and those men want to kill you. Yes, because you're some kind of king? Kieran's jaw tightened. It's complicated. Uncomplicate. Luna surprised herself with the steel in her voice. I just lost everything I own helping you. I think I've earned an explanation. For a long moment, he just studied her face, then he sighed.
You're right, you have.
He gestured to a fallen log. Sit. This is going to take a while. As Luna settled on the makeshift seat, Kieran began to pace, restless energy radiating from him like heat. My people call ourselves the Moonborn. We've lived alongside humans for millennia, hiding in plain sight. I'm what you might call a werewolf, though we prefer shapeshifter. And yes, I am a king. Or was supposed to be. 3 months ago, my father was murdered by a group calling themselves the Purge Initiative, humans who've learned of our existence and decided we're too dangerous to live. His voice went flat, emotionless. They've been systematically hunting down pack leaders, trying to destroy our social structure. Luna's heart clenched at the pain hidden beneath his controlled tone. I'm sorry. I was meant to take his place, unite the scattered packs, lead them to safety. Instead, I've been running for weeks, bleeding out in alleys, barely staying ahead of their kill squads. Why were you in Millbrook? Kieran stopped pacing, his back to her. Because I was dying, really dying. And something called me there. Called you. This is going to sound insane, but for the past month, I've been having dreams. The same dream every night. A woman with dark hair and kind eyes baking bread in a small kitchen, the scent of cinnamon and vanilla, and he turned to face her, those silver eyes, intense, and something else, something that smelled like home. Luna's mouth went dry. What did she look like in the dreams? Like you. The words were barely audible, exactly like you. If you were Luna, would you trust a stranger who saved his own life by crashing through your window? Tell me below, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss what happens next. Because something tells me Kieran's dreams are about to become Luna's reality in ways neither of them expect. Chapter 2. The silence stretched between them, heavy with implications Luna wasn't ready to face. Kieran's silver eyes never left hers, as if he were trying to memorize every detail of her face. That's impossible, she whispered. Dreams are just random brain activity, memory fragments. Are they? Kieran stepped closer, and Luna caught his scent, pine and rain, and something wild that made her pulse quicken. Then tell me, Luna Morrison, why do you smell like cinnamon and vanilla? And why does being near you feel like coming home after decades of being lost? Before she could answer, a howl echoed through the forest, long, mournful, and definitely not human. Kieran's head snapped toward the sound, every muscle in his body coiling with tension. We need to move now. Wait, Luna scrambled to her feet. I don't understand any of this. Those men destroyed my bakery, my home. I can't just... They'll kill you if they find you. Kieran's voice was flat, matter of fact. The Purge Initiative doesn't leave witnesses, but I don't know anything. I exist. You've seen me shift. That's enough. His eyes softened slightly. I'm sorry, Luna. I never meant for you to get caught up in this. Another howl, closer this time, then another from a different direction. Hunters use tracking wolves, Kieran muttered, scanning the trade line. Shifters they've broken. Forced to serve. His jaw clenched. We have maybe 10 minutes before they find this clearing. Luna's mind raced. Everything logical told her to demand he call the police, to find some way back to her normal life. But the smoking remains of her bakery told a different story. Normal was already gone. Where do we go? There's a safe house about 15 miles north, but Kieran hesitated. We'll have to travel fast, and not all of it on meaning you'll have to trust me to carry you. As the wolf, heat flooded Luna's cheeks as she remembered, clinging to his thick fur, feeling the power in his muscles as he bounded across rooftops. It should have been terrifying. Instead, she'd felt safer than she had in years. Okay, Kieran blinked. Just like that? Just like that. Luna surprised herself with how steady her voice sounded. But I want answers when we get there. Real answers. Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe even admiration. Deal. He was already pulling off his shirt as he spoke, and Luna quickly looked away, heat rising in her cheeks again. You'll need to hold on tight. Kieran's voice came from behind her, rougher now. And whatever you do, don't let go. Luna turned back to find the massive silver wolf waiting, intelligent eyes watching her with an intensity that made her breath catch. This time, when she climbed onto his back, she noticed details she'd missed in her earlier panic, the way his fur felt like silk beneath her fingers, how perfectly her body seemed to fit against his. The moment she settled, Kieran took off like a shot. Trees blurred past in a rush of green and shadow. The wolf moved with fluid grace, never jarring her despite the incredible speed. Luna found herself relaxing into the rhythm of his gait, trusting completely in his ability to keep her safe. They'd been running for maybe 20 minutes when Kieran suddenly skidded to a halt, his body going rigid beneath her. Luna looked around, confused, until she saw what had stopped him. A woman stepped out from behind a massive oak tree, moving with predatory grace. She was stunning, tall, and lean, with platinum blonde hair and ice blue eyes, but it was the rifle in her hands that made Luna's blood freeze. Hello, brother. Kieran shifted back to human form so quickly. Luna tumbled off his back, landing hard on the forest floor. He moved to shield her, every line of his body screaming danger. Sarah. His voice was flat, emotionless. I wondered when you'd show up. Did you really think I wouldn't track you down? The woman, Sarah, smiled, but it was all teeth and no warmth, especially after what you did to father. What I did? Kieran's voice rose to a roar. You're the one who betrayed him to the hunters. Luna's mind reeled. This beautiful, dangerous woman was Kieran's sister, and she'd betrayed their father. I saved our people. Sarah snapped. Father would have gotten us all killed with his outdated ideas about coexistence. The humans will never accept us. The only way to survive is to hide or to rule. So you chose to help them hunt us to extinction instead. I chose to join the winning side. Sarah's finger moved the trigger, and now I'm going to finish what they started. Sarah, please. Kieran raised his hands, palms out. Whatever they promised you, it's a lie. The Purge Initiative won't stop with the pack leaders. They'll kill every shifter they can find. Not if I deliver them the Alpha King. Sarah's smile widened. Do you have any idea what they'll pay for your head, dear brother? Luna watched in horror as Sarah raised the rifle, her finger tightening on the trigger. Without thinking, she lunged forward, placing herself between the siblings. Stop. Sarah's eyes widened. Well, what do we have here? Her gaze raked over Luna with clinical interest. You smell interesting. Human, but not quite. Leave her out of this. Kieran growled, trying to push Luna behind him. But Sarah was already inhaling deeply, her expression shifting from casual cruelty to shocked recognition. Oh my God. The rifle wavered in her hands. She's pregnant. Luna's world tilted. What? And the scent. Sarah's voice went deadly quiet. It's not just any baby. That's a royal heir. That's impossible. Luna stammered. I can't be. But even as she said it, pieces clicked into place. The exhaustion she'd been attributing to long hours at the bakery, the way certain smells had been making her nauseous, the strange dreams that had been plaguing her sleep. Dreams of running through forests, of howling at the moon, of silver eyes watching her with infinite tenderness. Kieran's silver eyes. How long? Kieran's voice was barely a whisper. Maybe 6 weeks? Luna's hand moved instinctively to her still flat stomach. But that doesn't make sense. We only just met. Sarah laughed, the sound sharp and bitter. Oh, this is rich. You actually don't remember, do you? Remember what? Luna looked between the siblings, fear growing in her chest. The mating ceremony, Sarah said with vicious satisfaction. 3 months ago, during the full moon, you were there, Luna. You chose him. You bound yourself to him before the entire pack. Luna's knees gave out. She would have hit the ground if Kieran hadn't caught her, pulling her against his chest. That's not possible, she whispered. I would remember something like that. Not if someone made you forget. Kieran's voice was tight with barely controlled rage. Memory magic. Someone wanted to separate us, to keep us from claiming our bond. But who would? Luna started, then stopped, as Sarah's expression shifted from triumph to confusion. Wait. Sarah lowered the rifle slightly. If she doesn't remember the ceremony, then she doesn't know about the prophecy. Sarah, don't. What prophecy? Luna demanded, looking between them. Sarah smiled again, but this time there was something almost sympathetic in her expression. The one that says the Alpha King's firstborn will either unite the supernatural world or destroy it completely. The forest went dead silent around them. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Luna felt the world spinning, reality reshaping itself around this impossible truth. She was carrying Kieran's child, a child she didn't remember conceiving, with a man she'd supposedly married in a ceremony that had been erased from her memory. Who did this to me? Her voice came out steady despite the chaos in her mind. Who stole my memories? Kieran and Sarah exchanged a look loaded with meaning. Someone who knew that separating you from Kieran would make him vulnerable. Sarah said quietly, someone who wanted the Alpha King isolated and weak when they made their move against Father. You know who it was? Luna could see the truth in Kieran's face. Tell me. Kieran closed his eyes, pain etched in every line of his face. Dr. Magnus Blackwood, the man who founded the Purge Initiative, he's also, Kieran's voice broke. He was our mentor, the man who raised us after our mother died. Luna stared at him, pieces of a horrifying puzzle clicking into place. He's been planning this for years. Since we were children, Sarah whispered, and for the first time, Luna heard genuine emotion in her voice. Everything we believed, everything he taught us, it was all a lie. A new sound reached them through the trees, the rumble of approaching vehicles. Found us, Kieran said grimly. Sarah raised her rifle again, but this time she turned it toward the sound of engines. Not if I have anything to say about it. Sarah, I may be a traitor, but I won't let them hurt a pregnant woman. Her ice blue eyes met Luna's, especially not one carrying the future of our people. The first shot echoed through the forest, followed by shouts and the crash of men moving through underbrush. Go, Sarah shouted over her shoulder. The safe house is 2 miles northeast. There's a tunnel system underneath. It'll get you to the border. What about you? Kieran demanded. Sarah's smile was fierce and wild. I'm going to buy you time. Now go. More gunshots closer now. Kieran grabbed Luna's hand, pulling her deeper into the forest as the sounds of battle erupted behind them. Is she going to be okay? Luna gasped as they ran. Sarah can take care of herself. But Luna heard the worry in his voice. They burst into another clearing, this one dominated by a small cabin that looked like it had been abandoned for decades. But when Kieran pressed his palm against a hidden panel beside the door, it swung open to reveal a sophisticated interior that was definitely not abandoned. Safe house, Kieran explained tersely, guiding her inside. There are dozens of them throughout the territory. Luna barely had time to register the high-tech security monitors and communication equipment before Kieran was pulling her toward what looked like a bookshelf. He pressed something and the entire wall swung inward, revealing a narrow tunnel that disappeared into darkness. The Underground Railroad, he said with a grim smile. Built during the witch trials, expanded during the Civil War, and updated by every generation of hunted supernatural since. Kieran. Luna caught his arm as he moved toward the tunnel entrance. What Sarah said about the prophecy, we'll figure it out. His silver eyes were intense, determined. All of it. The missing memories, the baby, what Magnus wants. But first, we need to get you somewhere truly safe. Luna nodded, but as they descended into the tunnel system, her hand moved protectively to her stomach. Whatever was growing inside her, it was apparently important enough to start a war over. The tunnel was surprisingly well maintained, with LED lighting strips and what looked like a small electric cart waiting for them. How far does this go? Luna asked as they climbed into the cart. All the way to Canada, if necessary. Kieran started the nearly silent motor, but we're only going about 10 miles to the main compound. As they moved through the underground passage, Luna found herself studying Kieran's profile in the dim light. This man was supposedly her mate, the father of her unborn child, and she felt something for him, a pull that defied logic, a sense of rightness that had nothing to do with reason. Tell me about the ceremony, she said quietly. Kieran's hands tightened on the steering wheel. You're sure you want to know? I need to know. He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, it was the night of the summer solstice. The pack had gathered for the seasonal celebration, but there was tension in the air. We've been getting reports of hunters moving through the territory. The cart hummed through the darkness as Kieran spoke, his voice taking on a distant quality. You arrived just after sunset. I'd never seen you before, but the moment you walked into the clearing, I knew. He glanced at her. Do you know what it's like when a wolf finds his mate? It's not just attraction or affection, it's recognition, soul calling to soul. Luna's chest tightened. What happened? You felt it too. I could see it in your eyes, the same shock, the same certainty. Within an hour, we were standing before the pack elders, pledging ourselves to each other under the full moon. And then Kieran's jaw tightened. And then we went to my cabin to consummate the bond. But when I woke up the next morning, you were gone. Everyone said you'd never been there. They said I'd been alone all night, that I must have dreamed the whole thing. But you knew better. I knew better. I could still smell you on my sheets, still feel the echo of our connection. But every time I tried to track you, the trail went cold. It was like you'd vanished into thin air. The cart began to slow as they approached what looked like another station platform. Magnus, Luna said quietly, he erased me from their memories too. And then he started his campaign against my father, using my supposed instability as evidence that I wasn't fit to lead. Kieran brought the cart to a stop. He played a long game, Luna, years of planning, all leading to this moment. They climbed out of the cart onto the platform. Another hidden door led to another staircase, this one leading up. What does he want? Luna asked as they climbed. Power, control. Maybe he genuinely believes humans and supernaturals can't coexist. Kieran paused at a heavy metal door. Or maybe he just wants to watch the world burn. He pressed his hand to another scanner and the door opened to reveal. Luna gasped. They were in the middle of what looked like a small city built entirely underground. Buildings carved from living rock, streets lit by some kind of bioluminescent moss, and people, dozens of them, maybe hundreds, moving about their daily lives. Welcome to heaven, Kieran said softly. The last free supernatural community in North America. Chapter 3. Luna stared in wonder at the impossible city spread before them. Children with pointed ears chased each other between market stalls while their parents, some human-looking, others decidedly not, haggled over goods she couldn't identify. A woman with wings folded against her back sold what appeared to be bottled starlight. Two men engaged in animated conversation, had skin that shimmered like scales in the bioluminescent glow. This is real, she whispered, all of it, as real as the child you're carrying. Kieran's hand found the small of her back, steadying her as she swayed slightly. Luna, are you all right? She wasn't all right. Nothing about this was all right. 6 hours ago, her biggest concern had been whether she'd have enough sourdough for the morning rush. Now she was pregnant with a supernatural king's prophesied child, standing in an underground city that shouldn't exist, while armed hunters tried to kill them both. I think I need to sit down. Kieran was immediately at her side, strong arms supporting her as her knees buckled. If there's a healer here, Elena, she's one of the best. No! Luna pulled away from him, surprising herself with the vehemence in her voice. No more surprises. No more people telling me things about my own life that I don't remember. I need answers first. Kieran studied her face, those silver eyes, seeing too much. What do you want to know? Everything. Luna straightened, finding strength she didn't know she possessed. Start with what I am, because I'm not entirely human, am I? That woman, Sarah, she could smell it on me. A small crowd was beginning to gather, drawn by the scent of their alpha king. Luna could feel their eyes on her, curious and assessing. Some looked hopeful, others seemed openly skeptical. Not here, Kieran said quietly. Too many ears and not all of them friendly. He guided her through the bustling streets, past shops and homes carved directly into the rock face, until they reached a building that was larger than the others. Ancient symbols were carved into its facade, glowing with the same soft light as the moss. The archive, Kieran explained as they climbed the steps. If there are answers about your heritage, we'll find them here. The interior was breathtaking, a vast library that seemed to extend impossibly far into the rock, with books and scrolls and artifacts organized on shelves that spiraled up into darkness. The air smelled of old parchment and something Luna couldn't identify, magic, maybe. An elderly woman emerged from between the stacks, moving with the careful precision of someone who had spent decades navigating these narrow aisles. Her silver hair was braided with small bones and crystals, and her eyes were the deep purple of amethyst. Kieran Blackthorn, her voice carried the weight of centuries. I wondered when you'd darken my doorway again. Hello, Grandmother Willow. Don't you Grandmother Willow me, boy. You disappear for 3 months, your pack scattered to the winds, and now you show up with... Her words died as her gaze fell on Luna. The ancient eyes widened. Impossible, she breathed. What is it? Kieran moved protectively closer to Luna. Willow circled Luna, slowly inhaling deeply, her expression growing more shocked with each step. Where did you find her? She found me, or rather, I found her. It's complicated. Complicated doesn't begin to cover it. Willow stopped directly in front of Luna, those purple eyes boring into hers. Child, what do you know about your parentage? Luna's mouth went dry. I was orphaned as a baby, bounced through foster homes until I aged out of the system. That's all I know. And you never wondered why you could do things other children couldn't. Never questioned why animals were drawn to you, why plants seemed to grow better in your presence. Heat flooded Luna's cheeks. Those were things she'd noticed but never talked about. The way stray cats followed her home, how her herb garden flourished even when she forgot to water it. The strange dreams that had always felt more like memories. How do you know about that? Willow's expression softened slightly. Because you're not the first of your kind I've encountered, though I never expected to see another. Another what? Moonchild. The word hung in the air like a prayer. Born during the lunar eclipse 26 years ago when the barriers between worlds grew thin, your mother was human, but your father, Willow, trailed off, moving to a particular section of shelves with purpose. My father was what? Luna demanded. Willow returned with an ancient leather-bound tome, its pages yellowed with age. She opened it carefully, revealing illustrations that seemed to move in the candlelight. Your father was Fey nobility, specifically one of the Wild Hunt, the most powerful and dangerous of the fair. Luna stared at the page, which showed a tall, thoroughly beautiful man with silver hair and eyes that seemed to hold starlight. Something about him was familiar, though she was certain she'd never seen the illustration before. That's impossible. They don't exist. Willow and Kieran exchanged a look. Luna, Kieran said gently, you're standing in an underground city populated by werewolves, pixies, and at least 3 different species of dragon. Maybe it's time to expand your definition if possible. Dragons? Luna's voice came out as a squeak. Focus, Willow said sharply. Your heritage explains why Magnus was so interested in you. Moon children are incredibly rare. maybe one born every few centuries. And when they mate with shapeshifter royalty, the child becomes a bridge, Luna finished, the knowledge coming from somewhere deep in her subconscious between all supernatural species, which is why Magnus erased your memories. Kieran's voice was tight with anger. He couldn't let you and I complete the mate bond. A united supernatural community would be impossible for him to destroy. Luna sank into one of the reading chairs, overwhelmed. So our baby will be the most powerful supernatural being born in 1,000 years. Willow closed the book gently, capable of commanding not just werewolves, but every species that walks in shadow. Or a new voice said from the archive entrance, capable of destroying them all. They turned to see a man in his 50s, distinguished and handsome in an understated way. He wore a simple gray suit and carried himself with the confidence of someone accustomed to being obeyed. But it was his eyes that made Luna's blood freeze pale blue, calculating and completely without warmth. Hello, my dear children. Dr. Magnus Blackwood said with a pleasant smile. I think it's time we had a proper family reunion. Kieran was already moving, placing himself between Magnus and Luna, but the older man raised a hand, and Kieran froze mid-step, his face contorting with effort as he struggled against some invisible force. Now, Magnus chided. Let's not be dramatic. I'm not here to hurt anyone. I'm here to collect what belongs to me. Nothing here belongs to you. Willow spat, her hands beginning to glow with purple light. Oh, but you're wrong. Magnus's smile widened. Luna has been mine since the moment I orchestrated her parents' meeting. Her Fae father, her human mother, I arranged their courtship, their mating, even the timing of her birth. She is quite literally my masterpiece. Luna felt sick. You're lying. And who do you think ensured you survived infancy when most moon children die before their first birthday? Who guided you to that particular foster family, the one with the grandmother who taught you to bake with herbs that just happened to strengthen your dormant magical abilities? The room seemed to spin around Luna. Every choice, every moment of her life. Had any of it been real? And of course, Magnus continued conversationally. Who do you think arranged for Kieran to be in that particular alley at that particular time? Really, children, did you think any of this was coincidence? Why? Luna's voice was barely a whisper. Because I needed a child with very specific genetic markers. Fae nobility crossed with shapeshifter royalty, conceived during a lunar eclipse, carried by a woman who had been prepared her entire life to channel that kind of power. Magnus began walking toward them, and despite Willow's glowing hands, she seemed frozen in place. Your baby, my dear Luna, will be born with the ability to control every supernatural creature on Earth. You want to use my child as a weapon? I want to save humanity. Magnus's mask of pleasantness slipped, revealing something cold and fanatic underneath. Do you have any idea how many people die every year because of supernatural predators? How many children disappear in the night? How many families are torn apart by creatures that see humans as nothing more than food? Those are isolated incidents Kieran managed to force out through whatever was holding him. Are they? Magnus waved his hand, and images began appearing in the air around them. Security footage of werewolf attacks, crime scene photos of vampire kills, missing person reports that numbered in the thousands. This is just from last year in North America alone. Luna stared at the evidence, her heart sinking. Some of the footage was clearly doctored, but not all of it, not even most of it. You see, Luna, the supernatural world likes to pretend they're the victims. But the truth is, they're the apex predators and humanity is their prey. Your child will change that balance forever by making them slaves, by making them manageable. Magnus's voice was reasonable, persuasive. Think of it as domestication. They'll be happier, safer, freed from their violent instincts, and you'll control whoever controls them. Magnus shrugged. Someone has to make the hard choices. Might as well be someone with humanity's best interests at heart. The paralysis holding Kieran and Willow suddenly broke, and both moved simultaneously, Kieran lunging for Magnus while Willow raised her hands to cast some kind of spell. Neither attack reached its target. Magnus simply smiled and snapped his fingers. The world went white. When Luna's vision cleared, they were no longer in the archive. Instead, she found herself in what appeared to be a medical facility, all white walls and gleaming equipment. She was strapped to an examination table with Kieran and Willow secured to similar restraints nearby. I apologize for the deception, Magnus said, pulling on surgical gloves. But I needed you to come willingly to Haven. My people have been trying to breach their defenses for months. You used us, Kieran snarled, struggling against his bond. I used you brilliantly. Do you know how many of your precious supernatural refugees are already under my control? The baker who sold you those delicious pastries this morning, the mechanic who directed you to the tunnel entrance, even dear Sarah who played her part to perfection. Luna's heart stopped. Sarah's working for you. Sarah's been working for me since she was 16 years old. Did you really think she betrayed me for money? Magnus laughed. I've been planning this operation for 25 years, my dear. Every contingency, every variable, every possible outcome. He moved to a tray of surgical instruments, selecting a scalpel with practiced ease. Now then, let's see what we're working with, shall we? A 6-week fetal supernatural hybrid should provide fascinating data. Don't touch her. Kieran's roar echoed off the sterile walls. Oh, I'm not going to hurt her much. Magnus approached the table where Luna lay helpless. I just need to run a few tests, take some samples, maybe extract some genetic material for future experimentation. Luna closed her eyes, reaching deep inside herself for something, anything that might help them. She thought about her child, about the future Magnus wanted to steal from them, about the way Kieran had looked at her when he'd spoken of their mating ceremony. And something answered. Power rose from her core, wild and ancient and absolutely furious. The lights in the facility began to flicker. Equipment started sparking and shorting out. Magnus stepped back, his eyes widening. Fascinating. The pregnancy is accelerating her awakening. Usually moon children don't manifest until... Luna's eyes snapped open and Magnus's words died in his throat. Her eyes were glowing with silver fire. Get away from my child. The words came out with such force that the windows in the facility exploded outward. Magnus was thrown backward into the far wall, his body hitting with a sickening crunch. The restraints holding Kieran and Willow dissolved like smoke. Kieran was at Luna's side instantly, helping her sit up as the power continued to pour off her in waves. Luna, you need to pull it back, he said urgently. If you don't control it, I can't. Panic was rising in her voice. I don't know how. The building was shaking now, cracks appearing in the walls. In the distance, alarms were blaring. Willow appeared at Luna's other side. Kieran, you have to complete the mate bond now. What? The power is unstable because she's not properly anchored. Complete the bond and you can help her channel it safely. I don't understand. Kiss her, you fool. Claim her properly with intent and power behind it. Make the bond real again. Kieran looked into Luna's terrified, glowing eyes. Do you trust me? Despite everything, the chaos, the fear, the impossible situation, Luna's answer was immediate. Yes. Kieran's hands cupped her face gently, his thumbs stroking her cheekbones. Then, let me anchor you. When his lips met hers, the world exploded into sensation. Luna felt the mate bond snap into place like a missing piece of her soul returning home. Power flowed between them, wild and chaotic but no longer destructive. Kieran's strength steadied her, while her magic seemed to ignite something primal and protective in him. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard and Luna's eyes had returned to their normal brown. Better? Kieran asked softly. Luna nodded, then looked around at the destroyed facility. Magnus was unconscious but breathing, pinned under a piece of fallen ceiling. We need to get out of here, Willow said urgently. His people will be coming. As if summoned by her words, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed from the corridor outside. This way, Kieran said, helping Luna down from the examination table. There's always another exit. They made it exactly 3 steps before the door burst open and armed figures in tactical gear poured into the room. Dr. Blackwood, one of them called, seeing Magnus's unconscious. Subdue the subjects, another voice commanded. Use the silver nets, and be careful with the pregnant one. We need her intact. Luna looked at Kieran, seeing her own determination reflected in his silver eyes. Together, she asked.
Always.
They turned to face their attackers, power crackling between them like lightning. Chapter 4. The tactical team hesitated at the display of raw power arcing between Luna and Kieran, but their hesitation lasted only seconds. These were professionals trained to hunt supernatural beings. Silver nets now, their leader barked. But Kieran was already moving. He shifted mid-leap, his massive wolf form crashing into the nearest soldier, while Luna's newfound power lashed out instinctively, sending two more flying backward into the corridor. The window, Willow shouted, her own magic creating a barrier of crackling energy between them and the remaining soldiers. Luna didn't question how they'd escaped from what had to be at least a 10-story building. She'd learned to stop questioning the impossible. Instead, she grabbed Kieran's discarded clothes and followed him toward the shattered windows. The wolf looked back at her, silver eyes full of trust and determination, then leaped. Luna closed her eyes and jumped after him. She landed on his back mid-fall, her body seeming to know exactly how to position herself for the impact. They hit the ground running, Kieran's powerful legs carrying them away from the facility at inhuman speed. Behind them, Willow's voice rose in an ancient chant, and the entire building began to collapse in on itself, burying Magnus and his team in tons of concrete and steel. They didn't stop running until they reached a small cabin hidden deep in a forest that looked nothing like the woods around heaven. When Kieran finally shifted back to human form, Luna slid off his back and immediately handed him his clothes, her cheeks burning. "Thank you," he said softly, and she caught something in his voice. Surprised, maybe, that she'd thought to grab them. "Where are we?" Luna asked, looking around at the unfamiliar landscape. "About 200 miles north of Haven." Kieran pulled on his jeans, wincing slightly. "This is one of my father's old safe houses." Was one of his safe houses. Luna heard the grief he was trying to hide and felt an answering ache in her chest. The mate bond, she realized. She could actually feel his emotions now, like echoes of her own. "Tell me about him," she said gently. Kieran's hand stilled on his shirt buttons. "Why?" "Because he was your father. Because Magnus killed him. Because..." Luna searched for the right words. "Because if I'm going to be part of this world, I need to understand what we're fighting for." Something shifted in Kieran's expression, a wall coming down, maybe. His name was Alexander Blackthorn. He was Alpha King for 43 years. Kieran moved to the cabin's small fireplace, building a fire with practiced efficiency. He believed in coexistence, thought that if we could just find the right approach, humans and supernaturals could live together openly. That sounds idealistic. It was. Kieran's smile was sad, but he made it work, at least partially. There were human supernatural communities throughout his territory, mixed marriages, hybrid children who grew up accepted by both sides. Luna settled on the cabin's small couch, watching firelight play across Kieran's features. "What changed?" "Magnus." Kieran's voice went flat. "He came to us when Sarah and I were just kids. Said he was a researcher studying supernatural genetics, wanted to help us understand our abilities better. My father was trusting. He welcomed Magnus into our pack, let him become part of our family. He was gathering intelligence for years. Learning our weaknesses, mapping our territory, identifying our most powerful members." Kieran sat down beside her, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his skin. When he finally made his move, he knew exactly where to strike. Luna reached out without thinking, her fingers finding his hand. The moment they touched, she felt his pain as if it were her own. The betrayal, the guilt, the crushing weight of responsibility for a people now scattered and hunted. "It wasn't your fault," she said softly. "Wasn't it? I should have seen what he was. Should have protected Kieran." Luna turned to face him fully, their joined hands resting between them. "You were a child when he came into your lives. And even as an adult, why would you suspect someone who raised you?" "Because I'm supposed to be a king. Kings are supposed to protect their people. Kings are supposed to be human too, even supernatural ones." The mate bond pulsed between them, and Luna suddenly understood things she hadn't consciously realized. The weight Kieran carried, the impossible expectations, the loneliness of leadership. "You've been alone for a long time," she said, "since the night you disappeared." His silver eyes met hers. "I knew something was wrong, that someone had taken you from me, but I couldn't prove it, couldn't even convince anyone else that you'd existed." "Tell me about that night." "The real version." Kieran was quiet for a long moment, staring into the fire. When he spoke, his voice was soft with memory. You appeared at the edge of our celebration like something from a dream. I was supposed to be mingling, playing politics with the other pack leaders, but all I could do was watch you. What was I doing? Dancing. There was music, and you were dancing alone under the full moon, completely unself-conscious. You looked, he paused, searching for words, free, like you belonged to the night itself. Luna felt a stirring of something, not quite memory, but an echo of emotion. Joy, she realized, pure, uncomplicated joy. When did you approach me? I didn't. You came to me. Kieran's smile was soft, lost in the past. Right in the middle of a conversation with Alpha Morrison about territorial disputes. You just walked up, took my hand, and said, "Dance with me." Despite everything, the danger, the uncertainty, the impossible situation, Luna felt her lips curve upward. That doesn't sound like me. I'm not usually that bold. You were that night. It was like you knew exactly who you were, exactly what you wanted. Kieran's thumb traced across her knuckles. We danced for hours, talked about everything and nothing. You told me about your bakery, about how you'd always felt like you were waiting for something without knowing what. And you told me that I'd been having dreams about a woman who smelled like home. Kieran's eyes found hers again, that I'd been searching for you my entire life without realizing it. The fire crackled in the silence that followed, and Luna felt something shifting inside her, not memories exactly, but a sense of rightness, of pieces falling into place. The mating ceremony, she prompted gently. You asked me to explain what it meant. I told you it was a soul bond, permanent and absolute, that we'd be able to feel each other's emotions, share strength, that our magic would be enhanced by the connection. And I said yes anyway. You said yes because of it. Kieran's voice dropped to a whisper. You said you'd been feeling incomplete your whole life, and that being near me made you feel whole for the first time. Luna's chest tightened. She couldn't remember the words, but she could feel their truth in the bond humming between them. What happened after the ceremony? We went to my cabin and Kieran's cheeks flushed slightly. We completed the bond. Heat flooded Luna's face. I wish I could remember. Maybe it's better that you don't, because it would make this harder. Knowing what we had, what was stolen from us, it would make the loss unbearable. Luna studied his profile, seeing the careful walls he'd built around his grief. Is that why you've been keeping your distance, even now when we're supposedly mated? Kieran's jaw tightened. I don't want to push you into something you don't remember choosing. What if I choose it now? The question hung between them, loaded with possibility and danger. Kieran's eyes snapped to hers, silver fire flickering in their depths. Luna, I can feel you, she said quietly. Through the bond, I can feel your loneliness, your pain, but also your love. For me, for our child, for your people. She shifted closer to him on the couch. I may not remember our past, but I know what I feel right now. What do you feel? Safe, complete, like I've been waiting my entire life for this moment. Luna's free hand rose to cup his cheek. Like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Kieran leaned into her touch, his eyes closing briefly. Even knowing what it means, the danger, the responsibility, the fact that half the supernatural world will expect you to be their queen. Even knowing all of that, when Kieran opened his eyes, they were blazing with emotion, love, desire, hope, and something fiercer, possession, maybe the recognition of a mate claimed and claiming in return. Luna, he said, and her name sounded like a prayer on his lip. Kiss me, she whispered. This time, when their lips met, it wasn't about anchoring power or completing magical bonds. It was about two people choosing each other, claiming the love that had been stolen from them. Luna felt the mate bond deepen, becoming not just a magical connection, but an emotional one. She could sense Kieran's wonder, his fierce protectiveness, his absolute devotion to her and their unborn child. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard. I love you, Kieran said simply. I loved you from the moment you took my hand under the full moon, and I'll love you until the day I die. I love you too. The words came easily, feeling like truth rather than declaration. Maybe I don't remember choosing you before, but I choose you now, completely. Kieran rested his forehead against hers, and for a moment they just breathed together, letting the certainty of their bond settle around them. Then Luna's stomach rumbled loudly, breaking the romantic tension. Kieran laughed, the first genuinely happy sound she'd heard from him. When's the last time you ate? Honestly, I can't remember. Everything's been such a blur since Luna stopped, her hand moving instinctively to her stomach. The baby, I need to be more careful. We both do. Kieran stood, pulling her with him. There should be supplies here. Emergency rations, at least. As they rummaged through the cabin's small kitchen, Luna found herself watching Kieran with new eyes. The careful way he checked expiration dates, the gentle concern in his voice when he asked about her food preferences, he was already thinking like a father. Kieran, she said as he heated soup on the cabin's ancient stove, what Magnus said about our child being able to control other supernatural beings, is that really possible? His hand stilled on the pot. Honestly, I don't know. Moonchild shapeshifter hybrids are so rare that most people consider them, but Magnus believes it. Magnus believes a lot of things, doesn't make them true. Luna heard the evasion in his voice, but you're worried about it too. Kieran sighed, turning to face her. I'm worried about what people will expect from our child. The pressure, the assumptions, the way both sides might try to use them. Both sides? Some supernatural communities are just as extremist as Magnus's people. They'd see our child as a weapon to use against humans. Luna felt a chill that had nothing to do with the mountain air. So our baby will be a target no matter what. Not if we can find another way. Kieran's voice was firm with determination. My father believed in coexistence. Maybe our child can be a bridge instead of a weapon. Someone who proves that humans and supernaturals can work together. That sounds dangerous too. Everything about our situation is dangerous. Kieran ladled soup into 2 bowls, bringing them to the small table. But dangerous doesn't mean hopeless. They ate in comfortable silence for a while, the simple domestic act feeling surprisingly normal after everything they'd been through. Luna found herself studying Kieran's hands as he ate, strong, capable, scarred from years of fighting and leading. Tell me about the pack, she said, eventually. The people Magnus scattered. Pain flickered across Kieran's features. 17 families, almost 60 individuals, including children. Some made it to other territories, found sanctuary with allied packs. Others, he shrugged, but Luna could feel his anguish through the bond. Others were captured or killed. The words came out flat, matter of fact, but Luna felt the grief beneath them. Is there any way to find them? The survivors? Maybe. There's an old network, signals and safe houses scattered across the continent, but reaching them would mean exposing ourselves, and with you pregnant. Kieran shook his head. It's too risky. Luna set down her spoon, decision crystallizing in her mind. What if it wasn't just about rescuing them? What if we could build something new? What do you mean? Magnus thinks our child will be a weapon. Other extremists think the same thing. But what if instead of hiding or fighting, we prove them all wrong? Kieran leaned back in his chair, studying her face. You're talking about going public. I'm talking about showing the world that supernatural beings aren't monsters to be feared or weapons to be controlled, that we're people who want the same things everyone else wants: safety, family, a place to belong. Luna, that's incredibly naive. The moment we show ourselves, we'll have targets on our backs. We already have targets on our backs. Luna reached across the table, taking his hand. At least this way we'd be fighting for something instead of just running from it. Kieran was quiet for a long time, considering her words. Through the bond, Luna could feel him wrestling with hope and fear in equal measure. It would be dangerous, he said finally. Everything worthwhile is dangerous. We'd be risking not just our lives, but our child's future. We'd be fighting for our child's future. Luna squeezed his fingers. I may not remember our past, but I know this: I didn't choose you just to spend our lives hiding in the shadows. A slow smile spread across Kieran's face. You know what? You're right. That night, when you took my hand and asked me to dance, you said something I'd forgotten until now. What? You said you were tired of living half a life, that you wanted to step into the light and see what you were capable of. Luna felt a flutter of recognition, not memory, but resonance. Then let's step into the light together. Before Kieran could respond, a howl echoed through the forest outside, long, mournful, and definitely not natural wildlife. They both froze. That's a pack call, Kieran said quietly, rising from his chair. Someone's found us. Magnus's people. No, that's... Kieran moved to the window, peering out into the darkness. That's one of mine, but it should be impossible. No one knows about this safe house except... The door exploded inward. But instead of tactical teams, or hunters. A young woman stumbled through the shattered doorway. She was maybe 20 with the kind of otherworldly beauty that screamed supernatural, but her clothes were torn and bloody, and her eyes were wide with terror. Alpha, she gasped, falling to her knees. Thank the moon I found you. Kieran was at her side instantly, helping her to a chair. Lyra, what are you doing here? The others, she panted, accepting the glass of water Luna brought her. The survivors from the pack. We've been gathering, trying to find you, and we learned something terrible. What? Luna asked, sitting down across from the injured woman. Lyra's eyes were bright with unshed tears. Magnus isn't dead. The building collapsed, he survived, and he's not working alone anymore. Kieran went very still. What do you mean? He's made a deal with them, Alpha, with the Council of Shadows. The name meant nothing to Luna, but she felt Kieran's terror through the bond, pure primal fear, unlike anything she'd sensed from him before. That's impossible, Kieran breathed. The council hasn't been active for centuries. They are now. Lyra's voice was barely a whisper, and they want the Moonchild's baby for themselves. Chapter 5. The temperature in the cabin seemed to drop 10 degrees. Luna watched Kieran's face go pale, his hands clenching into fists at his sides. Who is the Council of Shadows? Luna asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know the answer. The oldest supernatural governing body in existence, Kieran said tightly. They ruled over all supernatural species for millennia before going into hiding during the witch trials. If they're active again, it means they think the old ways are returning. Lyra finished. The time when supernaturals didn't hide from humans, they ruled over them. Luna's hand moved protectively to her stomach, and they want our baby to help them do it. Not help. Lyra corrected grimly. Lead? The council believes that a child with Moonchild and Alpha King bloodlines wouldn't just be able to control supernatural beings, they'd be powerful enough to enthrall humans as well. Enthrall? Luna's voice came out as a whisper. Mind control, Kieran explained, his jaw tight with anger. Turn them into willing slaves. Luna felt sick. That's monstrous. That's the council. Lyra accepted another glass of water from Kieran, her hands shaking slightly. They've been recruiting Alpha, promising power to anyone willing to serve them. Some of our own people have joined them. The single word came out as a growl. Beta Marcus from the Southern Pack, Alpha Helena from the Mountain Territory, and Lyra hesitated, pain flickering across her face. And Alpha. Kieran went very still. Thorn betrayed us. He says he's being practical, that fighting the council is suicide, so we might as well align ourselves with the winning side. Luna could feel Kieran's anguish through the mate bond, another betrayal, another friend lost to the growing war. How many are still loyal? She asked gently. Maybe a third of the surviving pack leaders. The others are either hiding dead or, Lyra shrugged helplessly, or waiting to see which way the wind blows. Kieran finished bitterly. A new sound reached them from outside, the soft rumble of approaching vehicles. Kieran was at the window instantly, peering through a crack in the curtain. 3 cars, moving slowly, like they're searching. His voice was deadly calm. Lyra, how did you find us? I followed your scent trail from Haven. It took me 2 days, but no. Kieran spun to face her, silver eyes blazing. The safe house is warded. Scent trails don't reach here unless someone allows them to. Understanding dawned on Luna with horrible clarity. She led them here. Lyra's face crumpled. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. They have my sister. They said they'd kill her if I didn't. How long do we have? Kieran interrupted, already moving toward a cabinet Luna hadn't noticed before. 5 minutes, maybe less. They're surrounding the cabin. Kieran pulled weapons from the cabinet, silver-bladed knives, some kind of modified crossbow, and what looked like grenades. Luna, there's a root cellar under the kitchen floorboards. Hide there and don't come out until... No. Luna stood, surprising herself with the firmness in her voice. I'm not hiding while you fight for our lives. You're pregnant. I'm also apparently the most powerful supernatural being born in centuries. Luna moved to his side, her hand finding his arm. We're stronger together, remember? Kieran looked like he wanted to argue, but the sound of car doors slamming cut him off. Alpha Kieran Blackthorn, a cultured voice called from outside. We know you're in there. Come out peacefully and we'll make this quick. That's not Magnus, Luna whispered. No, Kieran said grimly. That's someone much worse. He moved to the front door, Luna beside him, while Lyra cowered behind the overturned table. Show yourself. Kieran called back, as you wish. The man who stepped into view at the edge of the clearing was tall and elegant, with silver hair and ageless features that spoke of centuries rather than decades. He wore an expensive suit that looked completely out of place in the wilderness, and his smile was cold as winter frost. Lord Cassius Nightfall, Kieran breathed. I should have known. Hello, young king. It's been far too long. Cassius's voice carried easily across the clearing. I see you've found your missing mate. How convenient. What do you want? You know what we want. The child she carries belongs to the council now. Over my dead body? Cassius laughed, the sound like breaking glass. That can certainly be arranged, but wouldn't it be easier to simply hand her over? We promised to take excellent care of both mother and child. The way you took care of my father? Your father was a fool who refused to see the changing world, but you could still choose wisdom over sentiment. Luna stepped forward, moving to Kieran's side. I choose for myself. Cassius's ancient eyes fixed on her with uncomfortable intensity. Ah, the Moonchild speaks. Tell me, dear, do you have any idea what you're carrying? My baby, the future ruler of both our worlds, a being capable of bridging not just supernatural species, but the gap between the mundane and the magical. Cassius began walking toward them slowly, his hands clasped behind his back. Do you really think hiding in the wilderness is the best future for such a child? Better than being raised by monsters? Monsters? Cassius looked genuinely surprised. My dear girl, we are the civilization your child was born to inherit. For millennia, we guided both humans and supernaturals toward prosperity and peace by controlling their minds, by providing direction to those too weak or confused to find it themselves. Cassius's smile never wavered. Really, is it so different from how human governments operate? Laws, punishment, social pressure, all forms of control. People choose to follow law. Do they, or do they simply lack the strength to resist? Cassius stopped about 20 feet away, still well within the clearing. Your child will have that strength. The power to lead both species into a golden age. Luna felt something stirring in her chest. Not the wild power from before, but something quieter and more focused. And if I refuse, then you'll watch everyone you care about die, starting with your mate. Cassius raised his hand, and Luna heard the distinctive sound of rifles being cocked. Looking around, she saw muzzle flashes glinting from the trees. They were completely surrounded. You have 30 seconds to decide. Cassius continued pleasantly. Come with us willingly, and Kieran lives. Refuse, and we'll take you anyway after we put him down. Luna looked at Kieran, seeing her own desperation reflected in his silver eyes. Through the bond, she could feel his frantic thoughts, looking for escape routes, calculating odds, preparing to die to give her even the smallest chance of freedom. There's another option, she said quietly. Luna, no. I'll come with you. She called to Cassius, but only if you let both Kieran and Lyra go unharmed. Luna! Kieran grabbed her arm. You can't. I can, and I will. She turned to face him fully, her voice dropping to a whisper. Trust me. Something in her tone made Kieran pause. Through the bond, Luna projected not fear or resignation, but determination and a growing sense of power. An acceptable arrangement, Cassius called back. Though I'm afraid your friends will have to remain our guests until after the child is born. We can't have them mounting rescue attempts. No deal. Then I suppose we do this the hard way. Cassius's smile turned predatory. Kill the male, take the female. The forest erupted in gunfire, but instead of bullets finding their targets, something extraordinary happened. Luna stepped forward, her arms spread wide, and a barrier of silver light erupted around the cabin. The bullets struck the barrier and simply stopped, hanging suspended in midair before falling harmlessly to the ground. Impossible, Cassius breathed. Luna felt the power flowing through her like a river, wild and ancient and utterly hers to command. For the first time since this nightmare began, she felt truly in control. You want my child? She called out, her voice carrying impossible authority. Then you'll have to go through me to get them. The silver light began to expand, pushing outward from the cabin. Where it touched the ground, flowers bloomed. Where it touched the trees, leaves unfurled in impossible abundance. And where it touched the hidden gunmen, they stepped out of concealment, lowering their weapons with expressions of wonder rather than hostility. She's awakening, one of them whispered. The prophecies were true. But Cassius wasn't affected by whatever spell Luna was weaving. His face twisted with rage as he raised his own hands, dark energy crackling between his fingers. Clever girl, but you're still untrained, still weak. Shadows began pouring from his outstretched palms. Let me show you what real power looks like. The darkness crashed against Luna's light like a wave against a seawall. For a moment, the two forces were perfectly balanced. Then Cassius's superior experience began to tell, and Luna's barrier started to crack. Luna. Kieran was beside her instantly, his hands covering hers. Let me help. The moment they touched, Luna's power doubled, then tripled. The silver light blazed brighter than the sun, and Cassius's shadows were burned away like mist. But the ancient vampire, because Luna could sense now that's what he was, had centuries of tricks at his disposal. Even as his attack failed, he was already moving faster than human eyes could follow. He appeared directly in front of Luna, one pale hand reaching for her throat. Kieran intercepted him mid-leap, the two supernatural beings crashing to the ground in a tangle of claws and fangs. But Kieran was exhausted from their escape, and Cassius was ancient and strong. Within seconds, the vampire had Kieran pinned, silver claws poised above his heart. Yield or I end him, Cassius called to Luna. The power flowing through her reached a crescendo, wild and desperate and absolutely furious. Luna felt something shift inside her, not just her own magic awakening, but something deeper, older. The child she carried wasn't just responding to her emotions, it was adding its own power to hers. Get away from my mate. The words came out with such force that every tree in the clearing bent away from her. Cassius was flung backward like he'd been hit by a freight train, crashing through two massive oaks before finally coming to rest against a boulder. The gunmen who had been approaching peacefully suddenly clutched their heads, crying out in pain as some kind of mental compulsion shattered. And in the sudden silence that followed, Luna heard something that made her blood freeze. Applause. Magnificent, Magnus Blackwood said, stepping out from behind the cabin. He looked exactly the same as he had in the medical facility, despite supposedly being buried under tons of concrete. Absolutely magnificent. Better than I ever hoped. Magnus, Kieran struggled to his feet, moving protectively in front of Luna. Hello, son. I see you've been taking good care of my investment. Your investment? Magnus's smile was paternal and utterly chilling. Did you really think any of this was coincidence, Kieran? The timing of Luna's awakening, Cassius's attack, even your dramatic rescue. He gestured around the clearing. I orchestrated all of it. Luna felt the world tilting around her. What? You needed a trigger for your full awakening, my dear. Extreme emotional stress, mortal danger to someone you loved. It was the only way to unlock your complete potential. Magnus pulled out what looked like a small recording device, and now I have everything I need. Readings of her power signature, Kieran said with dawning horror. You can replicate it better than that. I can enhance it, focus it, weaponize it. Magnus's eyes gleamed with scientific fervor. Do you have any idea what kind of technology I can build with this data? You're insane. I'm visionary, but don't worry, I won't need to trouble you much longer. Magnus raised the device, and Luna heard a high-pitched whine building. This will extract the child's essence without harming the mother. Much. The whine reached a crescendo, and Luna felt something trying to tear at the life growing inside her. She screamed, falling to her knees as agony lanced through her entire body. Kieran roared, shifting mid-leap as he threw himself at Magnus. But the older man was ready for him, raising some kind of silver weapon that discharged with a sound like thunder. Kieran's wolf form crumpled to the ground, silver spreading through his fur like poison. No! Luna's power exploded outward again, but this time it was unfocused, chaotic. Trees withered and bloomed simultaneously. The air itself seemed to catch fire. Through her pain and rage, she heard Magnus laugh. Perfect. Perfect. The readings are off the charts. Stop, Luna gasped, crawling toward Kieran's still form. Please stop. Oh, but we're just getting to the good part. Magnus adjusted settings on his device. Let's see what happens when we push her to the absolute limit. The extraction beam intensified, and Luna felt her child's life force being pulled away from her. She reached for Kieran, her fingers finding his fur, and through the mate bond, she felt his pain, his desperate love for her, his fading life. And something inside her snapped. The power that erupted from Luna wasn't silver light this time. It was pure white fire, the kind of energy that existed at the heart of stars. It incinerated Magnus's device instantly, reduced Cassius to ash where he lay, and sent every other hostile presence fleeing into the forest. When the light finally faded, Luna found herself cradling Kieran's human form against her chest. The silver poisoning was gone, burned away by her power, but he was unconscious and barely breathing. Kieran, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. Please don't leave me. His eyes fluttered open, silver and full of wonder. Luna, I'm here.
The baby?
Luna's hand moved to her stomach, and she felt the steady flutter of life within. Safe. We're both safe. Kieran struggled to sit up, his arms wrapping around her. Magnus. Luna looked around the clearing, seeing nothing but scorched earth and ash where their enemies had stood. Gone, she said simply. They held each other in the ruins of the battlefield, two people who had found each other across impossible odds and chosen love over fear, hope over despair. What happens now? Luna asked. Kieran's smile was soft but determined. Now we do what you suggested. We step into the light and show the world what we're really fighting for. He kissed her then, deep and desperate and full of promise, and Luna felt their bond settle into something unbreakable. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. Did you see that twist coming? Who do you trust now? Magnus's claims about protecting humanity or Kieran and Luna's vision of coexistence? The real war is just beginning. Share your thoughts in the comments. Chapter 6. 3 weeks later, Luna stood in the center of what had once been Haven's main training ground, her hands glowing with controlled silver fire. Around her, a dozen supernatural beings watched with a mixture of awe and weariness as she carefully shaped the energy into complex patterns. Good, Willow said from her position nearby. Now try to split your focus. Maintain the fire while extending your awareness to the forest boundary. Luna closed her eyes, feeling for the edges of her power. Over the past weeks, she'd learned that her abilities weren't just raw force, they were incredibly versatile. Healing, shielding, communication across vast distances, and something Willow called truth sight, the ability to see through lies and illusions. But today's lesson was about multitasking, and it was proving more difficult than Luna had expected. I can feel them, she murmured, her consciousness touching the minds of the sentries posted around Haven's perimeter. But the fire is getting unstable. That's because you're trying to control everything instead of flowing with it, a new voice said from the edge of the training ground. Luna's eyes snapped open to see Kieran approaching, and her heart did that little skip it always did when she saw him. 3 weeks of constant proximity hadn't diminished the effect he had on her. If anything, it had gotten stronger. Shouldn't you be in the strategy meeting? She asked, letting the silver fire dissipate. Finished early. Turns out there's only so many ways to say we're outnumbered, outgunned, and running out of places to hide. Kieran's smile was grim. How's the training going? She's progressing faster than anyone in recorded history, Willow said, with obvious pride. But she's still fighting her instincts. What do you mean? Luna asked. Kieran moved to stand beside her, and she felt the now familiar warmth of their bond strengthening. You're trying to micromanage your power. But magic isn't about control, it's about trust. Easy for you to say. Your abilities don't risk accidentally incinerating half of Haven, don't they? Kieran's eyes gleamed with mischief. Want to see what an alpha's rage can do when it's not properly channeled. Before Luna could ask what he meant, Kieran shifted. But instead of his usual controlled transformation, this shift was explosive. Power radiated outward from him in visible waves, and his wolf form was easily twice its normal size, crackling with silver energy that matched her own. Every supernatural being in the training ground immediately dropped to one knee, their heads bowed in instinctive submission. Kieran, Luna breathed, awed by the display of raw authority. The massive wolf looked at her, and she saw infinite gentleness in those silver eyes, despite the power radiating from him. Then he shifted back, and the oppressive weight of his presence receded. The point is, he said, seemingly unaffected by what had just happened. We all have the potential for destruction. The trick is learning to trust yourself. Luna looked around at the other trainees who were slowly getting back to their feet. Some looked shaken, but others seemed How do I learn to trust something I don't fully understand? By understanding that you don't have to be perfect to be powerful. Kieran's hand found hers, and she felt their bond pulse with warmth. You just have to be willing to try. Willow cleared her throat pointedly. Speaking of trying, we have reports from the scouts that need addressing. The warmth Luna had been feeling evaporated. What kind of report? The kind that suggests Magnus isn't as dead as we'd hoped, Kieran said grimly. They made their way to Haven's communications center, a high-tech cave filled with monitors and equipment that looked like it belonged in a spy movie. Several people were clustered around the main display, their expressions tense. Show us, Kieran said to the woman at the central console. The main screen flickered to life, showing satellite footage of what appeared to be a massive construction site in the middle of the Nevada desert. Construction began 4 days ago, the console operator explained. The building rate is impossible. They're working around the clock with equipment we can't identify. What are they building? Luna asked, studying the aerial view. Best guess, some kind of research facility, but the energy readings are off the charts. Kieran leaned closer to the screen. Those aren't normal construction crews. Luna followed his gaze and saw what he meant. The figures moving around the site moved with inhuman speed and coordination. Controlled supernatural workforce. Willow corrected grimly. Look at their movement patterns. Luna watched more closely and felt sick. The beings down there moved like puppets, their actions perfectly synchronized in a way that spoke of external control. He's using some kind of compulsion technology, she realized. Based on the readings he took from my power, it gets worse, the console operator said, switching to a different feed. We've identified similar facilities under construction in 12 locations worldwide. The screen split into multiple views, construction sites in Russia, Brazil, Japan, and others, all showing the same impossible building speed, the same controlled work. He's building an army, Kieran said flatly. No, Luna corrected, a cold certainty settling in her stomach. He's building factories, places to mass produce whatever he learned from studying my abilities. Before anyone could respond, alarms began blaring throughout Haven. Red lights flashed and a voice came over the intercom system. All personnel to defensive positions. We have multiple breaches at the northern perimeter. Through the communication center's cameras, Luna watched in horror as figures in military gear poured through Haven's supposedly impenetrable barriers. But these weren't normal soldiers. They moved with supernatural speed and strength, and their eyes glowed with an eerie blue light. Enhanced humans. Willow breathed. He's already started human trials. Kieran was already moving, grabbing weapons from the emergency locker. Luna, you need to get to the safe room. Like hell. This isn't a debate. You're right, it's not. Luna's voice carried sudden authority, and she felt her power rising. I'm not hiding while our people fight for their lives. Your safety is more important than...
No, it's not.
Luna turned to face him fully, her eyes blazing with silver fire. My child's future is what's important, and that future doesn't include a world where people like Magnus can turn humans into puppets and hunt supernaturals for sport. Kieran stared at her for a moment, and Luna could feel his internal struggle through their bond. His need to protect her warring with his recognition that she was right. Fine, he said finally. But you don't leave my sight. Agreed. They made their way through Haven's winding corridors, joining other defenders as they moved toward the main cavern. Luna could hear the sounds of battle echoing from above, shouts, gunfire, and something else that made her skin crawl. What is that sound? She asked Kieran, screaming. He said grimly. The enhanced humans, I think they're in pain. The modifications might be unstable. They emerged into the main cavern to find chaos. The enhanced soldiers were faster and stronger than normal humans, but they were also clearly suffering. Several had collapsed, writhing in agony as whatever Magnus had done to them took its toll. But there were dozens of them, and Heaven's defenders were being overwhelmed. Luna didn't think, she simply acted. Power flowed out of her like a tidal wave, washing over the enhanced soldiers. But instead of attacking them, she did something that surprised everyone, including herself. She healed them. The blue glow faded from their eyes as Luna's silver light burned away whatever compulsion technology was controlling them. One by one, they stopped fighting, confusion replacing the artificial rage on their faces. Where am I? One of them asked, staring around at the underground city with bewilderment. You're safe, Luna said gently, though the effort of healing so many at once left her swaying on her feet. You're all safe now. Kieran caught her as her knees buckled. Luna, what did you do? Set them free, she whispered, then louder. Magnus was controlling them. They didn't choose to attack us. The revelation sent ripples through the gathered defenders. These weren't enemies, they were victims. But Luna's moment of triumph was short-lived. A slow clap echoed through the cavern, and she looked up to see Magnus himself stepping through the main entrance, flanked by figures in dark robes. Magnificent as always, my dear, he said with genuine admiration. Though you've just cost me several $1 million in research assets. Good, Luna said, struggling to stand despite her exhaustion. Magnus's smile was indulgent. I was hoping you'd do exactly that. The readings I'm getting now are even better than what I recorded at the cabin. Luna realized with growing horror that he was wearing some kind of device on his wrist. It was pulsing with the same rhythm as her heart. You're still recording my power signature. Every moment since you arrived in Haven, Magnus confirmed. Did you really think this place was as hidden as you believed? I've had sensors monitoring this location for months. Kieran stepped protectively in front of Luna. What do you want, Magnus? What I've always wanted, to save humanity from the supernatural threat. Magnus gestured around the cavern. Look around you, son. How many innocent people have died because places like this exist? How many humans have been turned into puppets, prey, or playthings? We're not the monsters here, one of the freed soldiers said, surprising everyone. You are. What you did to us, the pain, the loss of control, no one deserves that. Magnus's expression flickered with annoyance. You'll understand eventually. When the world is safe from supernatural predation, you'll thank me. The world was already safe, Kieran said firmly. We were coexisting, building something better. Were you? Or were you simply biding your time until you felt strong enough to reveal your true nature? Magnus's voice took on a lecturing tone. Luna's power proves my point perfectly. She can control minds, manipulate emotions, rewrite the very fabric of reality. How long before she decides humanity needs to be guided? Luna felt a chill at his words, partly because she couldn't entirely deny them. Her abilities were growing stronger every day, and sometimes she caught herself thinking how much easier things would be if she could just make people understand, make them cooperate. She's not like that. Kieran said firmly, "Isn't she? Tell me, Luna, when you healed those soldiers, didn't a part of you enjoy the feeling of absolute power over their minds?" The question hit closer to home than Luna wanted to admit. There had been a moment, just a brief one, when she'd felt the intoxicating rush of having complete control over other beings' thoughts and action. She started, then stopped. Magnus smiled triumphantly. You see, even now, she's recognizing the temptation. And that's just the beginning. Wait until the child is born. Wait until she has a truly worthy cause to fight for. How long before protecting her baby justifies any action, any violation of free will? You're wrong, Luna said, but her voice lacked conviction. Am I? Then prove it. Walk away. Leave Kieran. Leave the supernatural world. Raise your child as a normal human. Give up the power that's already corrupting you. Luna stared at him, feeling the weight of his challenge. Around her, she could feel the defenders of Haven watching, waiting to see what she would choose. She won't, Kieran said quietly, because she's stronger than you give her credit for. Or, Magnus countered, because she's already too addicted to the power to give it up. The words hit Luna like physical blows, partly because they echoed her own secret fears. Was she becoming something monstrous? Was the intoxicating feeling of absolute ability slowly changing her into the kind of being Magnus claimed all supernaturals were? Maybe you're right, she said quietly. Kieran spun to face her, shock and betrayal written across his features. Luna, no. Maybe I am becoming something dangerous. Maybe our child will be too. Luna's voice grew stronger as she spoke. But you know what the difference is between us and you, Magnus? What's that, my dear? Luna's eyes blazed with silver fire, but this time it felt controlled, purposeful. We're willing to make the hard choice to be better. You've decided that power justifies anything. We choose to use power responsibly, even when it's difficult. Pretty words. More than words, Luna stepped forward, her power rising around her like a silver storm. I could control every mind in this cavern right now. I could make you all forget this conversation, make you serve me willingly, but I won't, because choosing the difficult path is what separates people from monsters. Magnus's smile faltered slightly. Noble sentiment. Let's see how long it lasts when your child's life is at stake. He raised his hand, and Luna saw too late that his robed companions weren't human at all. They were some kind of synthetic beings, and they moved faster than even supernatural reflexes could track. One of them reached Luna before Kieran could intercept, metal claws extending toward her belly. Luna's power exploded outward, but instead of raw destruction, it formed a perfect sphere of protection around her unborn child. The synthetic being's claws shattered against the barrier like glass against steel. But the effort left her completely drained, and she collapsed as the silver light faded. Luna! Kieran caught her as she fell, and through their bond, she felt his terror, his rage, his absolute determination to protect her. I'm okay, she whispered. The baby's okay. But I can't. I need time to recover. Around them, the battle resumed as Magnus's synthetic beings clashed with Haven's defenders, but Luna barely noticed, focused entirely on the growing argument she could feel through her mate bond. Kieran was furious, not at their enemies, but at her. You could have been killed, he said as he carried her toward Haven's medical bay. I protected our child by nearly dying in the process. Kieran's voice rose to a shout. What happens to our baby if you're dead, Luna? What happens to all of us? I made the right choice. Did you, or did you make the choice that felt most dramatic? Luna stared at him, shocked by the accusation. What's that supposed to mean? It means you're so focused on proving you're not a monster that you're taking stupid risks. Kieran set her down on one of the medical bay's beds with perhaps more force than necessary. Magnus is playing mind games with you, and you're letting him win. I'm trying to be responsible. You're trying to be a martyr. Kieran's eyes blazed with anger, and martyrs don't make good mothers. The words hung between them like a physical barrier. Luna felt something crack in their bond, not breaking, but definitely damaged. I see, she said quietly. So now you don't trust my judgment. Don't trust your guilt complex. Kieran ran his hands through his hair, frustration radiating from him. You're so terrified of becoming what Magnus says you are that you're overcompensating in the other direction. And you're so terrified of losing me that you want to wrap me in cotton and hide me away. Maybe that's exactly what I should do. The words came out louder than Kieran had intended, and they both froze at the implications. You want to lock me up? Luna said, her voice deadly quiet. I want to keep you safe. Same thing. No, it's not. It is. Luna sat up on the medical bed, her eyes blazing with anger. You want to make my choices for me, just like Magnus does, just like everyone does. That's not fair, isn't it? Tell me, Kieran, if I chose to leave Haven tomorrow to take our child and try to live a normal life, would you let me go? Kieran's silence was answer enough. I thought so. Luna swung her legs over the side of the bed, standing despite her exhaustion. Maybe Magnus was right about one thing. Maybe power does corrupt everyone, including the people who think they're protecting me from it. Luna, wait. But she was already walking away, leaving Kieran alone in the medical bay with the wreckage of their first real fight. Chapter 7. 2 days after their fight, Luna sat alone in one of Haven's observation decks, staring out through the reinforced crystal windows at the underground lake that stretched beyond the city. She'd been avoiding Kieran, not difficult in a place this size, but she could feel him through the mate bond, a constant ache of worry and regret that matched her own. The problem was they were both right. Luna touched her stomach, feeling the flutter of life within. At 10 weeks now, the pregnancy was starting to show, and with it came an increasing awareness of just how much was at stake, not just her life or even Kieran's, but the future of every supernatural being on Earth. Brooding doesn't suit you. Luna turned to see Willow approaching, moving with the careful grace of someone far older than she appeared. I'm not brooding, I'm thinking. Same thing in this case. Willow settled beside her on the observation deck's small bench. Want to talk about it? What's to talk about? Kieran thinks I'm reckless. I think he's overprotective. And meanwhile, Magnus is building an army while we tear ourselves apart. And what do you think the real problem is? Luna was quiet for a long moment, watching the bioluminescent fish that moved through the underground lake like living stars. I'm scared, she admitted finally. Of Magnus? Of myself. The words came out in a rush. What if he's right, Willow? What if power really does corrupt everyone? When I healed those soldiers, there was a moment where I felt godlike, like I could remake the world however I wanted. And that terrifies you. It should terrify everyone. Luna's hand moved protectively to her stomach. What happens when our child is born with even more power than I have? What happens if they decide the world would be better if everyone just obeyed? Willow was quiet for several minutes, and when she finally spoke, her voice carried the weight of centuries. Do you know how I became an archivist, Luna? I assumed you'd always been one. No. 300 years ago, I was a healer, the most powerful one my people had ever seen. I could cure any disease, mend any wound, even bring back the recently dead. Willow's eyes were distant with memory. And I was so proud of that power, so certain that I knew what was best for everyone. Luna felt a chill of recognition. What happened? There was a plague, a terrible one that was killing both humans and supernaturals. The leaders of both communities came to me begging for help. Did you cure it? I did more than that. I decided the plague was a symptom of a larger problem, that humans and supernaturals would never stop warring unless I made them. Willow's voice dropped to a whisper. I created a compulsion spell, not just to end the plague, but to make both species incapable of violence against each other. Luna stared at her. You controlled their minds for their own good, I told myself. For peace. For the greater good. Willow's laugh was bitter. Do you know what happens when you take free will away from an entire population? What? They stop being people. They become puppets, going through the motions of life without any real purpose or passion. Within a year, both communities were dying, not from disease, but from despair. Luna felt sick. How did you fix it? I didn't. I couldn't. The spell was too deeply rooted, too complex to unravel. It took the combined efforts of every major supernatural leader on the continent to break what I had done. Willow turned to look at Luna directly. Thousands died because of my arrogance. Good people, innocent people who trusted me to heal them and instead found themselves enslaved. That's not the same as what I'm facing, isn't it? You have the power to control minds, Luna, to rewrite reality itself. And right now, you're terrified that using that power makes you a monster, doesn't it? That depends entirely on why you use it. Willow stood, moving to the window overlooking the lake. The difference between a healer and a tyrant isn't the power they wield. It's whether they serve themselves or others. But how do I know the difference? How do I know when I'm helping and when I'm just forcing my will on others? You ask. Willow said simply, you listen, you make the hard choice to walk away when people don't want your help, even when you're certain you know better. Before Luna could respond, alarms began blaring throughout Haven once again, but this time they weren't the sharp, urgent sounds of attack. They were deep, resonant tones that seemed to shake the very foundations of the underground city. What is that? Luna asked, but Willow was already running toward the communication center. They burst into the main monitoring room to find chaos. Every screen showed the same terrifying sight, massive drilling machines breaking through Haven's defensive barriers at dozens of points simultaneously. How is this possible? Someone shouted over the noise. The barriers are powered by the ley lines themselves. Unless someone found a way to disrupt the ley lines, Kieran said grimly, appearing at Luna's side as if their fight had never happened. Magnus has been studying this place for months. He must have found the focal points. On the main screen, they watched as the drilling machines finished their work and began disgorging troops. Not enhanced humans this time, but something far worse. Are those... Luna squinted at the screen, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. synthetic supernaturals. Willow breathed. He's mass-produced artificial beings with our abilities. The creatures pouring into Haven moved with inhuman coordination, each one a perfect amalgamation of different supernatural traits. Some had the speed of vampires and the strength of werewolves. Others wielded magic that crackled with familiar silver energy. He used my power signature, Luna realized with growing horror. He's built artificial beings that can use versions of my abilities. How many? Kieran demanded. The console operator's voice was barely steady. Hundreds, maybe thousands, they're coming from every direction. Evacuation protocols. Kieran commanded. Get the non-combatants to the deep shelters. There's nowhere to run, Luna said quietly, watching the screens with growing certainty. This isn't just an attack, it's a trap. He wants us all in one place. As if summoned by her words, Magnus's face appeared on every screen simultaneously, his smile as pleasant and terrifying as ever. Good evening, residents of Haven, he said in the tone of a friendly neighbor. I trust you can all see the forces currently surrounding your sanctuary. I have a simple proposition for you. The screen switched to show external views of Haven, completely encircled by military vehicles, synthetic creatures, and what appeared to be some kind of massive energy weapon aimed directly at the city's heart. Surrender Luna Blackthorn and her unborn child, and the rest of you will be allowed to live under appropriate supervision, of course. Refuse, and I'm afraid this will be your turn. How long do we have? Kieran asked the console operator. He's charging some kind of weapon. Based on the energy readings, maybe 20 minutes before he can penetrate the core barrier. Luna felt the weight of every gaze in the room, hundreds of innocent people looking to her and Kieran for a miracle they might not be able to provide. There has to be another way, she said desperately. There is, Kieran said quietly. I can buy you time to escape. What are you talking about? Kieran turned to face her, and Luna saw terrible resolve in his silver eyes. The deep tunnels connect to the old mining system. There's a route that leads to the surface about 50 miles from here. If I can keep Magnus's forces occupied. No. Luna's voice cut through his words like a blade. I'm not running while you sacrifice yourself. Our child needs both parents. Luna grabbed his arm, feeling the mate bond pulse with shared desperation. There has to be another way. Luna, Kieran said gently. Sometimes there isn't. Before she could argue, the screens flickered and changed, showing a view of Haven's main entrance. Magnus himself stood there, flanked by his synthetic creatures and what appeared to be a team of scientists with various scanning equipment. I'm coming in, his voice announced through the communication system. With a small escort, of course. I think it's time we had a proper conversation. He's insane if he thinks we'll just let him waltz in here, someone muttered. But Luna was studying the screens more carefully, watching the way Magnus's escorts moved, the positioning of his equipment, the confident way he approached what should have been a heavily defended position. He's not here to negotiate, she realized. This is another data collection mission. He wants to record my power signature at close range, under maximum stress. Then we don't give him what he wants, Kieran said firmly. No. Luna stepped back from the console, her mind racing. We give him exactly what he wants, and then we give him more than he can handle. Luna, what are you thinking? She turned to face the room full of Haven's defenders, supernatural beings of every kind, all looking to her with hope and fear in equal measure. I'm thinking it's time to stop being afraid of what I might become, she said, her voice growing stronger with each word. Magnus wants to see my power? Fine. Let's show him what happens when a moonchild stops holding back. The risk, Willow started. The risk of me becoming a monster, or the risk of letting a real monster win because I was too scared to fight. Luna's eyes began to glow with silver fire. I spent weeks terrifying myself with what ifs. But you know what I should have been afraid of? Doing nothing while innocent people die. She moved toward the communication console, her power rising around her like a storm. Magnus, she called, knowing her voice would carry through every speaker in Haven. You want to talk, fine, but we do this face to face in the main cavern. Just you and me. Luna, no. Kieran reached for her, but she was already walking away. And Magnus, she called back, come alone, because if I see even one of your synthetic puppets, I'm going to show you what a real monster looks like. The journey to the main cavern felt like walking to her execution, but Luna forced herself to move with confidence she didn't feel. Behind her, she could hear Kieran and what sounded like half of Haven's population following, but she didn't look back. The main cavern was exactly as she remembered from their first arrival. A vast space carved from living rock, lit by bioluminescent moss and filled with the sounds of an underground community going about their daily lives. Except tonight it was filled with the sounds of people preparing for war. Magnus was waiting in the center of the space, looking exactly as composed as always. But Luna noticed new details, the subtle way he favored his left side, suggesting injuries from their last encounter, the slight tremor in his hands that spoke of stress or medication, the way his eyes tracked her movement with scientific fascination rather than human emotion. "My dear Luna," he said with genuine warmth, "you look radiant. Pregnancy suits you. Cut the pleasantries, Magnus. What do you want?" "What I've always wanted, to save humanity from a threat they don't even know exists." He gestured around the cavern. "Look at this place, a hidden city filled with beings who could destroy human civilization without breaking a sweat. And you want to protect them? I want to protect everyone, human and supernatural alike. Noble, naive, but noble." Magnus began walking slowly around her, and Luna noticed the devices attached to his clothes. Sensors, she realized, recording everything. "Tell me, have you given any thought to what your child will be like every day? And what conclusions have you reached?" Luna felt the trap in his question, but answered anyway. "That they'll be whatever we teach them to be. Will they, or will their nature overcome their nurture?" Magnus smiled. "You see, I've been running simulations based on your power readings. Fascinating stuff, really. Your child won't just be the bridge between supernatural species. They'll be capable of rewriting the fundamental laws of reality itself." A chill ran down Luna's spine. "That's impossible." "Is it? You've already demonstrated the ability to heal compulsion, technology, to destroy ancient vampires with a thought, to shield yourself from weapons that shouldn't exist. Your child will be born with all of that power and more." Around the cavern, Luna could feel the growing tension as Magnus's words sank in. She could see doubt creeping into some faces, fear into others. "What's your point?" she asked. "My point is that in 15 years, maybe 20, your child will face a choice. Use their godlike power to help humanity or to replace it entirely." Magnus stopped directly in front of her, and given the current state of human supernatural relations, which choice do you think they'll make? "They'll choose compassion, understanding, coexistence." "Will they, even after seeing how humans have treated their people, even after watching their parents hunted and persecuted?" Magnus's smile was sad now, almost paternal. "My dear girl, you're betting the future of our species on the emotional stability of a being more powerful than anything that's ever existed." Luna felt something crack inside her, not her power, but her certainty. Because Magnus was right about one thing, her child would face impossible choices, and she couldn't guarantee they'd make the right ones. "I can feel your doubt," Magnus continued gently, "and that's why I'm going to make you an offer. I'm listening. Come with me, let me study your abilities, help me understand them completely. In exchange, I'll develop technology to safely suppress your child's power until they're mature enough to handle it responsibly." The offer hung in the air like a poisonous flower, beautiful and tempting and ultimately deadly. "You mean lobotomize them?" "I mean, give them the chance to grow up normal, to make their own choices about power instead of being born into godhood." Magnus's voice was persuasive, reasonable. "Isn't that what any loving parent would want?" Luna looked around the cavern, seeing the faces of people she'd come to care about. Willow, who'd overcome her own mistakes to become a force for wisdom, the freed soldiers who'd chosen to stay and help rather than return to their old lives, children playing in the shadows, innocent of the war raging around them. And Kieran standing at the edge of the crowd with silver eyes full of love and trust and absolute faith in her ability to make the right choice. "No," she said quietly. "I'm sorry." "No," Luna repeated, louder this time. "I won't condemn my child to a diminished life because you're afraid of what they might become." Magnus's pleasant facade finally cracked. "Then you're condemning humanity to extinction. I'm giving both species the chance to evolve beyond fear." Luna's power began to rise, silver light filling the cavern, and I'm trusting my child to be better than both of us. How touching, Magnus said, his voice turning cold, and how predictably foolish. He raised his hand, and Luna saw too late that this had been the real trap. The sensors he wore weren't just recording her power, they were analyzing it, mapping it, preparing to replicate it. Did you really think I came here to negotiate? Magnus smiled as energy began building around his fingers, silver energy that looked disturbingly familiar. I came here to field test my latest breakthrough. The energy lanced out toward Luna's stomach, and she realized with horror that it wasn't meant to kill her. It was meant to extract her unborn child's power while leaving the physical body intact. But Kieran was already moving, throwing himself between Luna and the attack. The artificial silver fire struck him full in the chest, and Luna felt their mate bond convulse with agony. Kieran's scream echoed through the cavern as the energy began tearing at his very essence, using their connection to reach the child within her. Kieran! Luna caught him as he collapsed, feeling his life force draining through their bond. No, no, no. I had to protect you, he gasped, blood frothing at his lips. Had to protect our child. Luna felt something inside her shatter, not break, but transform like a butterfly emerging from a chrysalis. Power poured out of her in waves, but this time it wasn't wild or chaotic. It was focused, purposeful, and absolutely furious. You want to see what a monster looks like? She asked Magnus, her voice carrying impossible authority. Let me show you. The silver light that erupted from Luna wasn't just energy, it was judgment itself, burning away everything false and leaving only truth behind. It stripped away Magnus's synthetic enhancements, revealed his artificial creatures for the hollow things they were, and laid bare the festering hatred and fear that drove him. But more than that, it reached beyond the cavern, beyond Haven, touching every mind that Magnus's technology had ever affected. Every enhanced human, every controlled supernatural, every artificial being he'd created. And it set them all free. Around the world, Magnus's facilities went dark as their enslaved workforces suddenly remembered who they really were. His synthetic army collapsed as the stolen power signatures that animated them were reclaimed by their rightful owner. When the light finally faded, Luna found herself holding Kieran's still form, his breathing shallow but steady. The mate bond pulsed weakly between them, damaged but not broken.
Magnus lay crumpled against the cavern wall, looking older and frailer than she'd ever seen him.
Impossible, he whispered. The readings, you shouldn't be able to... To what? To choose love over fear? To trust instead of control? Luna gently laid Kieran down and stood, her power still crackling around her like controlled lightning. That's the difference between us, Magnus. You see power as something to hoard and manipulate. I see it as something to share. You've doomed us all, Magnus gasped. No, Luna said with quiet certainty, I've given us all a chance to be better. She knelt beside Kieran again, placing her hands on his chest. Silver light flowed from her fingers, not forceful this time, but gentle, healing. She felt their mate bond strengthen as his wounds closed, as his breathing deepened. When his silver eyes opened and focused on her face, Luna smiled through her tears. Hello, my love. Did we win? He asked weakly. Luna looked around the cavern, seeing Magnus's unconscious form, the freed artificial beings who were already choosing to help rather than harm, the faces of Haven's people filled with hope instead of fear. We're about to. Chapter 8. As Kieran struggled to sit up, Luna felt the full weight of what she'd just done settling around them. The silver light that had erupted from her hadn't just freed Magnus's victims, it had announced to every supernatural being on Earth that something fundamental had changed. Luna, Willow's voice carried a note of awe and concern. Do you realize what you've done? Before Luna could answer, the communication systems throughout Heaven crackled to life with incoming messages from around the globe. Haven Base, this is Alpha Marson in Montana. Our captured pack members just walked out of a government facility in Colorado. They said the compulsion devices just stopped working. This is Elena Rodriguez in Mexico City. The synthetic creatures that attacked us last week are asking for sanctuary. They remember who they used to be before Magnus changed them. Haven, this is the Vancouver Coven. We're getting reports of humans voluntarily coming forward saying they want to help supernatural refugees It's like they suddenly understand we're not their enemies. The messages kept coming, dozens of them, from every corner of the supernatural world. Luna listened with growing amazement as the scope of her power's reach became clear. I can feel them, she whispered, one hand pressed to her temple. Every mind I touched. They're all connected now, like a vast network of understanding. Kieran took her free hand, his grip weak but steady. Connected how? They can sense each other's emotions. Humans can feel when supernaturals are afraid or in pain. Supernaturals can sense human compassion and fear in equal measure. Luna's eyes widened as the implications hit her. I didn't just free them from Magnus's control. I created a bridge, an empathic link between species. That's... Willow paused, clearly struggling with the concept. That's unprecedented, the kind of magic that should be impossible even for a moonchild. Luna looked down at her still flat stomach, understanding flooding through her. It wasn't just me, was it? The baby helped. How is that possible? Kieran asked, because they're not fully formed yet, not locked into a single identity or species. Luna's voice carried wonder and a hint of fear. Right now, our child exists in a state of pure potential. They were able to channel power that transcended any single supernatural type. A groan from across the cavern reminded them that Magnus was still alive. Luna turned to see him struggling to his feet, his face pale with shock and rage. "What have you done?" he demanded, stumbling toward them. The reports are already coming in. Humans and supernaturals working together, sharing resources. "You've destroyed the natural order." "I've created a better one," Luna said calmly. "Better. You've given supernaturals access to human emotions, human thoughts. How long before they start manipulating those connections? How long before empathy becomes control?" For a moment, doubt flickered in Luna's chest. What if he was right? What if she just made it easier for her people to dominate humans? But then she felt it through the vast network her power had created. She sensed not manipulation or control, but something far more powerful, understanding. In a small town in Nebraska, a werewolf pack was helping human farmers whose crops had been destroyed by supernatural creatures, not out of obligation, but because they could feel the farmers' genuine desperation and grief. In Tokyo, a vampire clan was donating blood to hospitals, having finally understood the human fear of death that had driven centuries of persecution. In Sao Paulo, human scientists were working with supernatural healers to develop new medical treatments, both sides contributing their unique strengths. "You're wrong," Luna said with growing confidence. "Empathy doesn't create control, it creates compassion." Pretty words. Magnus snarled, "But you've still doomed your own child. Do you think humans will be content to simply coexist now that they know what supernaturals are capable of? Do you think your people will resist the temptation to use their new emotional access for personal gain?" "Some will fail," Luna admitted. "Some humans will fear what they don't understand. Some supernaturals will abuse their abilities. But more will choose to be better, naive, hopeful." Luna stood, her power stabilizing around her in a way that felt natural for the first time. "And I'm going to give them every chance to prove me right." Magnus pulled something from his jacket, a small device that pulsed with familiar silver light. "Then I suppose I'll have to stop you the old-fashioned way." Before anyone could react, he activated the device and threw it toward Luna's feet. The explosion wasn't fire or shrapnel, it was pure psychic energy, designed to sever the empathic connections Luna had created and trap her in a feedback loop that would likely kill her and her unborn child. But the attack never reached its target. A barrier of combined power surrounded Luna, not just her own silver light, but golden energy from Willow, the deep green of earth magic from the plant-based supernaturals, the brilliant blue of water wielders, and the fierce red of fire spirits. Every supernatural being in heaven was contributing their strength to protect her. "You see," Luna said as Magnus's device shattered against the barrier, "that's the other thing about empathy. It works both ways." Through the network she created, Luna could feel the determination and love of hundreds of beings, not just in Haven, but around the world. Supernaturals who had felt her sacrifice, who understood what she was fighting for, who were willing to share their power to help her succeed. But more than that, she could feel something unprecedented, humans adding their strength to the network. They couldn't contribute magical power, but they offered something just as valuable: will, determination, and the uniquely human capacity for hope in the face of impossible odds. This is impossible. Magnus breathed, staring at the swirling vortex of combined energies. This is evolution, Luna corrected. This is what happens when people choose trust over fear. The combined power flowing through Luna wasn't chaotic or overwhelming. It was harmonious, each contribution adding to the whole without losing its individual nature. And at the center of it all, she felt her unborn child's presence like a gentle conductor, helping orchestrate the symphony of abilities. What do you want to do with him? Kieran asked, nodding toward Magnus. Luna looked at the man who had caused so much pain and suffering, who had nearly destroyed both their worlds in his quest for control. Part of her wanted to use her power to make him feel every moment of anguish he'd inflicted on others. But that would make her exactly what he claimed she was. I want to give him a choice, she said instead. She walked toward Magnus, her power receding to manageable levels. When she was close enough to see the fear and hatred warring in his eyes, she stopped. I could force you to understand, she said quietly. I could make you feel what your victims felt, make you see the world through their eyes. I have that power now. Magnus straightened, trying to regain his composure. But you won't. Too noble for that, aren't you? No, too smart. Luna smiled sadly. Forced understanding isn't real understanding. If you're going to change, it has to be your choice. She gestured around the cavern where humans and supernaturals were working together to tend the wounded and repair the damage from the battle. Look at them, Magnus. Really look. Do you see monsters? Or do you see people trying to build something better? For a moment, something flickered in Magnus's eyes, uncertainty, maybe even doubt. But then his face hardened again. I see the end of human supremacy. I see my species being relegated to pets or prey. Then you're not looking hard enough, Luna said with genuine pity. But I won't force you to see what you refuse to acknowledge. She turned away from him, but his voice stopped her. What happens to me now? Luna looked back, considering. That's up to you. You can keep fighting, keep trying to destroy what we're building, or you can choose to be part of the solution. And if I choose to keep fighting, then we'll stop you. But we won't kill you, and we won't control your mind. We'll just make sure you can't hurt anyone else. Magnus stared at her for a long moment, as if trying to understand a puzzle he'd never encountered before. You're really not going to punish me for everything I've done. Punishment doesn't heal the damage you've caused. Only better choices can do that. To everyone's surprise, Magnus laughed, not with humor, but with what sounded like genuine bewilderment.
You know what the truly terrifying thing is? He said. I actually believe you mean that.
Before Luna could respond, new alarms began sounding. Not the sharp warnings of attack, but the longer tones that indicated incoming communication. What now? Kieran muttered, helping Luna back toward the communication center. The main screen flickered to life, showing not an enemy, but a familiar face. President Harrison speaking from what appeared to be the Oval Office. My fellow Americans, he began, and indeed, citizens of the world, I come to you tonight with revelations that will challenge everything we thought we knew about our reality. Luna felt Kieran's hand find hers as they watched the most powerful human in the world prepare to change everything. For centuries, perhaps millennia, we have shared this planet with beings of extraordinary ability. They have lived among us, worked beside us, even loved us while keeping their true nature hidden out of fear for their safety. The screen split to show footage from around the world, supernaturals helping with disaster relief, supernatural healers working in hospitals, supernatural scientists contributing to medical breakthroughs. Recent events have brought this hidden community into the light, and with it, an opportunity for our species to evolve beyond the fear and suspicion that have defined us for too long. President Harrison's expression grew more serious. I am hereby establishing the Department of Supernatural Integration, tasked with creating legal frameworks that protect the rights of all sentient beings, regardless of their origin or abilities. We will not repeat the mistakes of our past. We will not allow fear to drive us to persecution or genocide. Luna felt tears streaming down her face as the president continued. This will not be easy. There will be those on both sides, who resist change, who prefer the familiar comfort of old prejudices to the challenging work of building understanding. But we must try, because the alternative, a world divided by fear and hatred, is no world at all. The transmission ended, leaving Haven in stunned silence. Did that really just happen? Someone whispered. It's starting, Luna said, wonder in her voice. The world we dreamed of, it's actually starting to happen. But even as she spoke, she could feel the resistance through the empathic network, pockets of humans who rejected the president's words, supernatural extremists who saw integration as capitulation, fear and hatred pushing back against hope and understanding. It won't be easy, Kieran said, echoing her thoughts. The best things never are. Luna turned to face the gathered crowd of Haven's residents. But we have something now that we've never had before, a chance to build bridges instead of walls. She placed both hands on her stomach, feeling the flutter of life within. Our child will grow up in a world where they don't have to choose between their human and supernatural heritage, where they can be both and neither and everything in between. What about Magnus? Willow asked, nodding toward where the older man sat under guard. Luna looked at him, seeing not the monster who had terrorized them, but a broken man consumed by fear and convinced that his way was the only way to protect his people. He gets the same choice as everyone else, she said firmly, the chance to be part of building something better. Magnus met her gaze, and for a moment she saw not hatred but profound confusion, as if he was looking at a world he no longer understood. Why? He asked quietly. Because that's what love does, Luna said simply. It chooses hope over fear, trust over control, and growth over stagnation. She felt Kieran's arms wrap around her from behind, his warmth solid and reassuring against her back. Through their bond, she felt his love, his pride, his absolute faith in the future they were building together. So what happens now? He asked against her ear. Luna looked around at the faces surrounding them, human and supernatural, young and old, all looking toward an uncertain but hopeful future. Now we get to work, she said with a smile. We have a world to change and a child to prepare for. As if responding to her words, the baby fluttered inside her, a gentle reminder of the new life that would inherit whatever world they managed to build. Luna closed her eyes and reached out through the empathic network, feeling the vast tapestry of human and supernatural consciousness that now connected both species. It was messy, chaotic, full of fear and love and hope and despair in equal measure. It was beautiful. I love you, she whispered to Kieran, to their unborn child, to the flawed and wonderful world they were all part of. I love you too, Kieran replied, his voice full of promise. All of it, all of us, forever. And in that moment, surrounded by friends and former enemies alike, Luna felt something she hadn't experienced since childhood, the absolute certainty that everything was going to be all right. Not perfect, not easy, but all right. And sometimes that was enough. Chapter 9, 6 months later. Luna stood on the balcony of what had once been Magnus's primary research facility, now converted into the headquarters of the Global Integration Council. Her hands rested on her rounded belly. At 7 months pregnant, there was no hiding the life growing within her anymore. Below, in the sprawling complex that had once been a place of fear and experimentation, humans and supernaturals worked side by side. The transformation hadn't been easy or immediate, but it was happening. Brooding again, Kieran's voice carried affection and gentle teasing as he joined her on the balcony, thinking, Luna corrected with a smile, there's a difference. Kieran wrapped his arms around her from behind, his hands covering hers on her belly. What about this time? The baby's been restless today. I think they can sense the tension from the European Council meeting. Through the empathic network that now connected both species globally, Luna could feel the ongoing debates across the world. Integration wasn't proceeding smoothly everywhere. There were still pockets of resistance, both human and supernatural, that viewed cooperation as betrayal. Any word from London? She asked. The werewolf packs in the UK have agreed to the territorial sharing proposal. The vampire covens are still negotiating. Kieran's diplomatic tone didn't hide his frustration. Lord Cassius's influence. What's left of it? Amazing how quickly ancient vampires can adapt when their power base crumbles. Luna felt their child kick in response to their father's voice, and She smiled despite her worries. They like it when you talk. Smart kid. They know who's going to be doing most of the bedtime stories. Most of them? Luna turned in his arms, raising an eyebrow. Okay, all of them, but only because you'll be too busy ruling the supernatural world. The joke held more truth than either of them was completely comfortable with. Over the past 6 months, Luna had somehow become the unofficial leader of the integration movement, the bridge between species that everyone looked to for guidance. I never wanted to rule anyone, she said quietly. I know, that's what makes you perfect for it. Kieran's expression grew serious. The power hasn't corrupted you, Luna. If anything, it's made you more compassionate. Some days I'm not so sure. Want to know what I see when I look at you? Kieran cupped her face gently. I see someone who chose to heal Magnus's victims instead of destroying their captor. Someone who built bridges instead of walls. Someone who trusted an entire planet to be better than their worst impulses. And was I right to trust them? Kieran gestured toward the complex below, where a group of children, some human, some supernatural, were playing together in the converted courtyard. Their laughter carried up to the balcony, pure and joyous. What do you think? Before Luna could answer, her assistant's voice came through the intercom system. Mrs. Blackthorn, there's someone here to see you. He says it's urgent. Luna and Kieran exchanged glances. Urgent visits had become a regular occurrence as the integration process faced new challenges daily. Send them up, Luna replied. A few minutes later, the balcony door opened to admit a figure that made both Luna and Kieran tense with recognition. Magnus looked older than when they'd last seen him, his hair completely white now, his face lined with exhaustion, but his eyes held something they'd never seen before, uncertainty, maybe even humility. Hello, Luna, Kieran. He remained by the door, as if unsure of his welcome. Magnus. Luna kept her voice neutral. I thought you were working with the rehabilitation program in Geneva. I am. Magnus's hands fidgeted with what appeared to be a tablet. But something's happened. Something you need to see. He activated the tablet and holographic displays filled the air around them. Data streams, genetic analyses, and what looked like satellite imagery from around the globe. What am I looking at? Luna asked. The long-term effects of your empathic network. Magnus's voice carried scientific excitement despite his obvious exhaustion. Luna, what you created 6 months ago, it's not static, it's evolving. Kieran stepped protectively closer to Luna. Evolving how? The connections between species are deepening. Humans are starting to manifest minor supernatural abilities. Some supernaturals are developing enhanced empathic sensitivity to human emotions. Magnus manipulated the holographic display, showing brain scans and genetic markers. Within a generation, maybe two, the distinction between human and supernatural may be purely academic. Luna stared at the data, feeling a mix of awe and terror. You're saying I accidentally started human evolution? Not accidentally. Purposefully. Your child, Magnus hesitated, then continued. Your child isn't just a bridge between existing species. They're a catalyst for the emergence of something entirely new. The baby kicked sharply as if responding to the conversation, and Luna winced. What kind of something new? Kieran demanded. A hybrid species. Beings born with the best traits of both humans and supernaturals, but limited by the weaknesses of neither. Magnus's eyes gleamed with scientific fascination. Immortal lifespans, but human creativity. Supernatural abilities, but human adaptability. The capacity for both logic and magic. That sounds... Luna searched for words. Terrifying, Kieran finished. What happens to pure humans? Pure supernaturals? They evolve too, or they become extinct. Magnus said it matter-of-factly, as if discussing the weather. Luna, you've initiated the next phase of intelligent life on Earth. Luna sank into one of the balcony chairs, overwhelmed. I just wanted peace between our peoples, and you achieved it by making them into one people. Magnus knelt beside her chair, his expression oddly gentle. I came to warn you because there are those who see this as an abomination. They'll try to stop it. Who? The purest alliance, humans who want to maintain species separation, the old guard supernaturals who view genetic mixing as contamination, on others beings from outside our current reality who have their own interests in how this planet evolves. Kieran's hand found Luna's shoulder, steady and reassuring, beings from outside our reality. The Fae courts. They've been watching your wife with great interest. Magnus stood, his expression troubled. Luna's father's people are complicated. They don't interfere with mortal affairs lightly, but a moonchild triggering species-wide evolution, that gets their attention. Luna felt a chill that had nothing to do with the evening air. My father's people, the Wild Hunt, the most powerful of the Fae nobility and the most dangerous. Magnus's voice dropped to a whisper. They're coming, Luna, not to harm you, but to evaluate what you've done, to decide whether humanity's evolution serves their interests. And if it doesn't, Magnus's silence was answer enough. The baby kicked again, more insistently this time, and Luna felt something she hadn't experienced in months, real fear. How long do we have? Kieran asked. Days, maybe weeks. The barriers between worlds are thinning as your child approaches birth. Magnus moved toward the balcony door. I've shared everything I know. What you do with it is up to you. Magnus. Luna's voice stopped him. Why are you helping us? He turned back, and for a moment she saw not the cold scientist who had terrorized them, but a tired old man carrying the weight of his mistake. Because I was wrong, he said simply, about everything. About you, about what humanity needed, about the nature of power itself. He managed a small smile. It turns out the future I was trying to prevent is the only one worth having. After he left, Luna and Kieran stood in silence on the balcony, watching the sun set over a world that was changing faster than either of them had imagined. Scared? Kieran asked eventually. Terrified. Luna admitted, what if we've made everything worse? What if our child becomes the catalyst for a war between dimensions? Then we'll face it together. Kieran's arms tightened around her. That's what we do, remember? We choose hope over fear. Luna leaned back against his chest, feeling their unborn child settle in response to their father's presence. Through the empathic network, she could sense the billions of minds connected by her power, human and supernatural, all struggling to build something better despite their fears and differences. I love you, she whispered. I love you too, both of you. Kieran's hand moved over their child. Whatever comes next, we'll meet it as a family. As if responding to his words, the baby moved. Not a kick this time, but something gentler, a flutter that felt almost like a caress. And in that flutter, Luna felt something that made her breath catch, not just her child's presence, but something older, wilder, infinitely powerful. Her Fae heritage awakening in response to her pregnancy and the approaching birth. Kieran, she said quietly, I feel it too. His voice was tense with recognition. Your power, it's changing again. Luna closed her eyes, reaching out with senses she hadn't known she possessed. And there, at the very edge of perception, she felt them beings of impossible beauty and terrible power, moving through dimensions toward their reality. The Wild Hunt was coming. But as fear threatened to overwhelm her, Luna felt something else through the empathic network, the combined strength of millions of minds, human and supernatural, all connected by the bridges she had built. She wasn't alone in this. None of them were. Whatever the Fae courts wanted, whatever tests they brought, Luna would meet them not as an isolated individual, but as the voice of an entire world that had chosen evolution over stagnation, cooperation over conflict. Let them come, she said, her voice carrying power that made the air shimmer around them. We're ready. Kieran turned her to face him, silver eyes blazing with love and determination. Are we? Luna smiled, feeling their child settle peacefully in her womb, feeling the vast network of connected minds that spanned the globe, feeling the mate bond that anchored her to the one person who had never doubted her capacity for good. We're about to find out. He kissed her then, deep, passionate, full of promise for whatever future awaited them. As their lips met, Luna felt a surge of power that wasn't hers alone, but belonged to everyone who had chosen to believe in the possibility of a better world. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard. Whatever happens, Kieran said against her forehead, I want you to know these have been the best months of my life. Even with all the chaos, the politics, the world-changing consequences, especially because of those things. Um, Kieran's smile was soft and fierce. You didn't just save our people, Luna. You gave them hope. You gave everyone hope. Luna's hand moved to her belly, feeling the strong flutter of life within. In a few weeks, their child would be born into a world still finding its balance between old fears and new possibilities. But it would be a world where human and supernatural children played together in converted research facilities, where former enemies worked side by side to build something unprecedented, where love had triumphed over fear, at least for now. As the first stars appeared in the darkening sky, Luna felt a presence at the very edge of her consciousness, ancient, powerful, and definitely not human. The wild hunt had found them, but instead of fear, Luna felt only anticipation. She had spent her entire life feeling incomplete, waiting for something without knowing what. She had found love with Kieran, purpose in bridging two worlds, and strength in the connections that now bound all thinking beings together. Whatever the fake hordes brought to her doorstep, she would meet it as Luna Blackthorn, mate to an alpha king, mother to a child who would inherit two worlds and the bridge between everything that had been and everything that could be. Come on, she said to Kieran, taking his hand. Let's go meet the future. Together, they walked back into their transformed world, ready to face whatever wonders and challenges lay ahead. Behind them, the stars wheeled in patterns that had not been seen since the world was young, and in the distance, hunting horns that only the most sensitive could hear began to sound. The next chapter of their story was about to begin. Which moment touched you the most? Was it Luna choosing trust over control? Kieran's unwavering faith in their love, or the hope of a world where children of all species play together without fear? Share it in the comments, and if you loved this journey, hit subscribe so you're here for the next story, because something tells me Luna and Kieran's adventures are far from over.